Pizza is the shit. Well, don't you know it? Because pizza is so punk. It's punk. Ooey gooey cheese. Rolling down to my knees. Because pizza is so punk that it's punk. Welcome to tonight's show. We got a nice serving of live pie. That's right, live pie tonight. When was the last time we did a live pie? It's been a while. And I'm really excited about tonight's guest. You know, I'll tell you something. Just from it's been almost 2 years now. And I just from one day on, it was March 20th. I remember it well because literally, I don't know, just a lot. It was like a new era of things for me. I don't know, with the internet, I guess. I just decided to go live and I just started talking live. And from just doing that, I have met so many people. It's been really, really cool. And so many of these people I've never met in real life, but you can meet people through the internet digitally. It's almost like a digital neighborhood. You turn to your digital neighbor and you're like, howdy. Hey, it's like these spaces aren't real spaces, and yet they kind of are at the same time. I suppose that's for historians to decide at some future date, like what exactly all of this is. Is it real? Is it not real? You get a lot of people who say, oh, it's not real. And, oh, it is real. I guess maybe it's like somewhere halfway in between. Like it's not a real place, but at the same time it is, because you genuinely do meet people like my friend Bob Rose, who I met over a podcast. We were doing a podcast. There was no video. There was only audio. And we connected through the internet, through our mutual friend, Nathan, who's the film festival director of the Nightmare Film Festival. No, Genre Blast Film Festival. And freaking, did that, and Bob and I eventually did meet in person. But my point is, I've met so many people, and tonight's guest is one of those people that I've met through the internet. Super awesome dude. Our mutual friend, Christopher M. Jimenez, introduced us. I've never even met Chris in real life, and yet I do a podcast with him on this channel. The internet is a weird place, man. The internet is such a weird place, but I'm very, very esteemed. What's up, Bill? We got Crazy White Boy in the house. How you doing, Crazy White Boy? Yes, I'd like to let's bring him out of the digital green room. Mr. Ace Von Johnson is here. He does a lot of things, but mainly he rock and roll courses through his veins. So let's bring him out and give him a nice warm welcome on the Frumess channel. Ace,
what's up, my friend? How are you
doing?
Got half one of those fingers in there. Yeah, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Excited to talk.
Yeah,
tonight.
Same. Likewise. I do want to say, I gotta tell everybody, it's rare that I jump on a show where I'm a fan of the show, and so this is one of those instances. Like I subscribe to your Patreon, and I try to pop in on the YouTube what we're doing right now whenever I can. Usually I'm working on something and it's on the TV behind me here in the office. So I just want to say the honor's all mine, man, and thank you for having me, and stoked to be here and talk about punk rock and pizza and Misfits or whatever else we discuss.
Yes, Ace is a Patreon as well. And I do, that was going to be my next thing, was that I want to thank you for just all of your support, man. And it's just, I truly appreciate your patronage and your participation and everything that you contribute in the live chat when you come through, and you are welcome here anytime.
Thanks.
Truly. Let's start off. I wanted to do a live unboxing. Well, we're going to talk about records anyway, too, I have a feeling. So that's why I was like, this is a perfect time to do a live. Yeah,
I've got a couple.
He's got some records.
There's 1,000 of them behind me.
Let's start things off with the thesis question that sort of began Pizza Punk in the first place. The notion, and again, it's totally subjective. There is no wrong answer here, folks. But I'm going to ask Ace, is pizza punk? And if it is punk, why is it punk? And if it's not punk, why is it not punk? Ace, what do you think?
Right on. I saw the comment there. I think pizza is totally punk rock. When I think about being on the road, or I think about, low budget catering in a green room, or I think about the Ramones and the Bowery, or I think about Jerry's Pizza in Bakersfield, which is like this shitty, I don't even know if it's there anymore, but this shitty like punk rock club in Northern California that like every, you know, up and coming punk band, you know, in the 90s and 2000s ever played. I definitely would say punk is pizza and pizza is punk. I got that backwards, but yeah, I just picture like Joey Ramone taking a big cheesy stringy bite out of like a slice of pie. And I would say as far as foods go, it's pretty indicative of punk rock. Yeah.
I love that answer. My friend Joe actually dragged me. We went to visit Joey Ramone's grave, and we ate pizza at Joey Ramone's grave. We brought him a slice. We left him a slice of pizza, which I'm sure the attendants of the cemetery probably aren't too keen on. But at the same time, this grave is covered in stuff. I mean, someone left a pair of jeans there, so I think leaving a piece of pizza in a pizza box, and that video is actually on this channel for anybody who wants to see two schlubs eat pizza at Joey Ramone's grave and wax poetically about the Ramones. But yeah. It really is. It is evocative of all those things. Great answer.
Totally. Thank you.
Great answer. Tell me something. Where are you? I know, and I kind of did this on purpose. I did a preliminary slight little Google search, but not too much because I wanted to just ask you questions.
Sure.
So where are you from originally?
I'm Angelino native LA guy, which is
Gotcha.
a rarity in the entertainment industry or music industry, especially. Second generation. My mom grew up there. She used to go see the Doors at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Wow.
And so I just was always there. And LA until about 18 months ago. And I'm currently in Nashville. I sort of upgraded my abode, if you will. I had a kicky little 100-year-old apartment in the Hollywood Hills, or at least the foot of the Hollywood Hills. It cost me an arm and a leg. And when the pandemic and all that, which, you know, we don't need to even get into, but when that hit, I was like, you know, I'm out of here. And so I upgraded to Nashville, which I'd been keeping my eye on for probably the last 10 years, to a house. So, you know, more bang for my buck. So
Mazel tov to you. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
It is nice to
L'chaim, my friend. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
when you do it is really nice when you know to expand into a house type setting if you're able to, and sort of, you know, put all your stuff, you know, you get to let all your stuff air out, maybe the stuff you don't have room for in an apartment per se. And
yeah,
it really is something. And Nashville is quite a bit of a music town, right?
I mean, they call it Music City. It's strange because it comes up frequently, but there's just so many, you know, you think of Nashville as like this country town, but it's really, I mean, there's a great punk scene. There's a great hip hop scene. There's like a whole stand-up comedy community. It's really just, you know, it is kind of a hub for entertainment. And having been coming out here for work for, you know, 15 years, you know, a friend of mine told me that around 2013 is when I started talking about, you know, like, oh, I could see myself living here. And one of my best friends in the world lives about 2 miles up the road. And another buddy of mine just moved from my neck of the woods in Hollywood. And he, unknowing to me, is maybe about a block and a half over. And then my buddy Ian, whose dad also lives here, his name is John Corabi, who was a singer for Motley Crue in the 90s. His son Ian lives, you know, if we both stand outside, we can yell to each other. And so
Nice.
I'm just in this area with all these people, and there's just always something going on. There's always shows and there's always events going on. And you know, I don't want to harp too much on Nashville, but just it's a really welcoming, warm environment. And I, you know, I'm just really humbled to be here. And I didn't come here to, like, you know, try to get some new gig or be an, you know, new musician guy in town. I just made sense because I had so many friends that lived here, and I knew I could afford, you know, more. And I have some family that's on sort of the East Coast. That's about a 4-hour drive. And then one of my closest friends in the world, Ricky Rackman, he's about a 6-hour drive. Although I decided I'm not going to make that drive again. I'll just fly. But he's not too far. He's in Charlotte, adjacent, North Carolina. So I you know, and I don't have a lot of family on the West Coast aside from my sister and my niece. So it kind of made sense that I'm here with some of my closer friends, or at least like up the street or within a day's drive. So I love it here.
And what is the food situation like down in Nashville? I mean, is it like stellar, like barbecue? Like, what is the big deal down over there?
There's so much food, man. I
Yeah,
don't eat you'd think that I'd be all about it, but uh, I I don't eat out a lot. Like, I found a cool couple sushi spots I like, and there's
cool.
a great Thai place up the street I like. Um, there's a ton of barbecue, hot chicken and all that kind of stuff. It's not really for my palate. But it's definitely, if you're looking for a place to get some food, there's definitely stuff here.
Right. It's a foodie city. It's a
Oh yeah,
foodie city. So you're kind of like so you're like you do a lot of cooking for yourself. Is it something that
yeah.
you like to do as like cooking, or is it something that you're just like, yeah, I'm not much of an out to eat type of guy, so I'll cook my own food, but utilitarian.
It depends on what's going on. I probably cook. I mean, I haven't eaten out, maybe once a week, twice a week. I try to prepare stuff at home usually, just, it's healthier, it's
Oh
more
yes, it is.
budgetary. Yeah, so
Yes,
I make like a lot of chicken. I make a ton of sautéed vegetables. Like I'm always making like spinach, mushroom, carrot, peppers, that
that's
kind of
fun.
thing. With
That's
like a
good.
little bit of sauce,
Yeah.
some flavor, and then I'm not eating a bunch of like empty calories or something like that.
Sauce is the boss, man. Sauce
Sauce
is
is
the
where it's
boss.
at.
Sauce
Yeah.
is the boss. That's great. That's really great. And it sounds, I mean, it's so exciting to just sort of put it's like up up planting roots and then no up no what am I
Up
trying to say?
uplifting?
Uplifting. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. Uplifting roots and then planting them down in a new space and sprawling it out. And I don't want to talk about this too much because you're gonna come back on to Sinful Southern. We're gonna do a full thing about horror movie posters, but I just want
Yep.
so it just explained to me a little bit. So you move into the house now, and suddenly it's like, okay, like I'm gonna like what goes through your mind of like how you're gonna frame shit? Are you like, okay, now it's time to bust out the goods that I never had
Yeah.
space for? Like, tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Well, I mean, my place in Hollywood was pretty small. Anybody that some of my friends maybe that might tune in or see this or whatever, listen later, know. And so it was kind of like, my living room was pretty much decked out, but that was kind of it.
Yeah,
And here I've got this long hall that goes down, there's like a stairwell that looks over and the bathroom and the master bedroom. And then I've got the stairwell itself with stuff running up it, and then the living room, and then there's the ceilings are really high here, and there's
nice,
this one wall that's really perfect for a trifold. So I've got a nice one that's there, and so most of the stuff, probably 75% of stuff that is framed and up here, I already had in Hollywood. I just didn't have it up because there was nowhere to
right?
frickin' put it. But a couple key pieces I've gotten since I lived here. And we'll do a whole deep dive another time. But
Sure,
I've
for
got
sure.
some I've got some really great stuff, and it's definitely one of my favorite hobbies or whatever you want to call it.
I'll tell you, I love getting like posters and stuff in general, but the
Yeah,
framing of it is such a pain in the ass.
it's a pain.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
if you got big stuff, I've got a guy I can send to you or send you to.
I it's just one of those things where it's like, when I was younger, I just didn't give a shit. I just put push pins into everything.
Yeah, yeah,
And
we
then
all
when you
do.
get older, you just decide I don't want that anymore. I want everything to have a border. I want everything to have a frame and it
Yeah,
becomes, especially when you get so like I have those what are they called? Lobby posters?
yeah,
The
yeah.
skinny ones?
Yeah,
Skinny
like a day bill or an insert, or yeah, like
day
it's like
bill.
what? Yeah, like 2 feet by like 1 feet, kind of.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I have one for Rock and Roll, which is like
cool.
a super weird, obscure rock and roll animated movie that if you've never watched, it is free legally on YouTube. You can legally watch this movie on
Okay.
YouTube, meaning that the people who own it actually uploaded it, so it's not illegal. Go check it out. Rock and Roll. It's on YouTube. It's got music with Iggy Pop, Cheap Trick, Blondie, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Lou Reed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an insane movie. I can't even describe it. You just have to go watch it. But I got one of those goddamn lobby posters, and I go, "Oh yeah, I'll just go down to Michael's." I'm like trying to like find the right goddamn
Yeah.
fucking skin. Doesn't work. That's a custom. Those are custom jobs.
Custom. Yeah. I got a place up the street here in East Nashville that I've been going to for the last year plus. And I keep popping in there. I actually went in there with a French, The Shining. I'm not sure what it would be called. I guess it kind of comparable to a insert, but it's about 24 by 20 or something like that. It's like almost like a gatefold album,
right,
if you will. And it's just that iconic scene of Nicholson's face coming through the the bathroom, and it says The Shining with all the stuff. And I've been hanging on to that for a while, and you gotta, because it's expensive, so I'll do them 2 or 3 at a time, and then I'll rearrange some stuff and whatever. But yeah, we definitely have some stuff to talk about.
I think that in general with collecting, it's like this weird sort of thing where it's like you like something, and when you first start it, it's like there's like this, and I'm talking very broadly, and I'm not talking specifically about you or me. I'm just saying very broad, general, sweeping statements here. The notion of like wanting to have the impressive looking collection and sort of like being very sort of maybe compromising with what you might put in the collection, because you want, at first it's all about quantity over quality, maybe. Yeah. And then as room becomes,
available.
No, well, I was going to say precious, like in the term of like, maybe if you don't have if there is a finite amount of space or a finite amount of shelving, because collections and shelving go hand in hand. There's so many different, factors that go into this, but the idea of like becoming more and more selective, and that's the way it is for me with like Blu-rays now. I am super selective with the boutique buys that I do, as well as records, man. I am super selective about the records I buy. I don't want to just own any old record,
I've gotten like that with vinyl as well, where I like beefed up my record collection over the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic and stuff. Just, I'm sitting here and might as well order some stuff off of
that's what happens.
Discogs or eBay or whatever, plus going to record conventions and stuff. And now it's gotten to the point where I go through and I might pull 1 or 2 things, but I'm like, I've got everything I really want, I really need, and I don't want to just I don't want to buy like 4 Heart albums just to fill in my H section, or whatever.
Right.
So quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, but it's so hard. The amount of control that you need when you start off, like to like have that, to like, it's about vision.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to have a vision that I want, but at the beginning it's like, no, I want to have it look full.
Yeah.
And so
that was me with the vinyl for sure. I'm constantly rearranging it, being like, well, this shelf looks too thick and this shelf looks too thin. This one's too hot, this one's too cold. And I finally got to a point where I'm like, all right, it's kind of, filling out.
Yeah. No, it looks great. Sense. Looks healthy. It looks healthy. I think I like it. And speaking of vinyl, let's do this real quick. Let's pop this open. Let's see how Mr. Ace reacts to this record I have here. Got my handy dandy knife here. This was from Frontier Records, if that's a clue. Frontier
I might know
Records.
what this is. I might know what this is.
I think you already know. And
I'm sure whatever it is, I have it.
You probably do have it. And I got to tell you, it's an album that I should have owned many, many years ago, and I didn't. And I always wanted to rectify it. It's too expensive. This is just sort of like a build-up guessing game. It was too expensive to buy an original one. I did see an original once for $120. I just was like, I can't justify spending that much money on any LP. I don't, I do own some Misfits vinyl, but or whatever, Danzig band era vinyl, whatever, just like from a Danzig band. I've never paid more than $55 because it's not that, like, I just can't. I want to own it, and I like the look and the aesthetic. I don't care if some of it is not genuine. I
get
point.
That. I get that.
Because especially with that market has just gotten so ridiculous.
It's absurd. I just bought a bunch of stuff off of eBay. Somebody put up their whole collection.
Oh, really?
Of nothing super insane, but there were a couple pieces like some Earth AD variants and some. It was mostly newer stuff. It was like Collection 2 and like all the color variants and whatnot.
I got to tell you, I'm pretty pissed right now.
What's wrong?
because it's damaged. Wow. Good thing. Wow. That sucks, dude. Look at that corner.
Ooh.
That's brutal, man. I think I might message them. That really upsets me. Wow. I mean, I paid $20. I paid $20 for it.
Yeah, I think I know what record it is just because I saw the font on the back. But
what record do you think this is?
Oh, it's Christian Death.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Only Theater Pain.
I bought Only Theater Pain. So the actual vinyl. This is I think this is a runoff. This is runoff, and it was $140 with the book and everything, and I just was like,
oh yeah,
they were selling just the LP for $20, and I was like, does it come with a sleeve? If it comes with a sleeve, if it comes with a sleeve, I'll buy it, and it's colored vinyl, which I love. And
do you know what color it is, or is it a surprise?
I have no clue. Let's find out. We're gonna find out right now. But I gotta tell you, like a part of me is like, it's not like I'm ever going to resell it. I want to own the album. So what do I care if it's a little damaged? Should I just do I just let it go?
I would just keep it.
It was $20.
I have stuff like that. Yeah. For $20. I mean, whatever. If it was like some OG pressing, I would be fuming, but
yeah, that would be a travesty. All right.
$20.
What color? What, guess the color. What do you think it's going to be?
I'm going to guess red, but who knows?
I don't remember. I genuinely don't remember. Let's find out. We're going to find out right now. Hold on, guys. 1 second. It is bittersweet though to see the sleeve like that. I was not expecting that. Friggin' mail, man.
Yeah,
it is. Man. It's red.
I knew it.
It's red.
That might have been. I might have subconsciously already known what they were doing.
Oh, it has a lyric sheet in it. Yeah, I'm happy. That's really
cool. Fantastic record. I do admittedly have a first pressing of that.
Wow. That's insane, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got that, and then probably everything through the Atrocities record, which is the first record where
Valor took over.
Valor sang. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't remember his freaking name. Yeah.
Okay, I think I have through Sexy Death God.
Okay.
But like Atrocities is a good record, actually.
It's a fantastic. The production on that is stellar.
Yeah. That was I remember. I distinctly, that's the one where it's like a concept album about like the Holocaust or something.
Yeah.
That
some of the lyrics are like, if you Google them or whatever, it's like really, very macabre.
Yeah. First of all, I love the Roz Williams Valor albums.
Yeah.
Catastrophe Ballet and Ashes.
Thank you. I was like, I know I have them. I don't remember what they're called. The Death Wish EP that sits between the first and second album, or maybe it was before the first record. I love that.
It might have been demos before the first album, but I'm not as much.
Yeah, I just know it's some French label put it out, and they consider it like a canonical release or whatever you want to call it. But I like some of the versions, because some of Only Theater of Pain stuff is on there as well.
Right.
That is my favorite era, mostly because Rick Agnew is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. I mean, if we're going to talk about punk rock, I mean, that guy, do you play guitar at all?
I am probably the most passionate non-musician music guy ever. So
understood. Well, he kind of started the whole trend of playing these things called octaves, which is what like all of Adolescence, DI, Bad Religion, No Effects, Pennywise, every punk band after that's like Southern California utilizes, and it totally all stems back to Rick Agnew's guitar playing. So what's amazing too is Roz Williams is obviously the mastermind behind Christian Death, but Rick Agnew, he co-wrote all those songs. He co-wrote with Rick Agnew. Rick Agnew is the musical side of that band, and most people don't realize this, but Sleepwalk, which is on Catastrophe Ballet, was also written by Rick Agnew. That's like one of the last things the original Christian Death. Yeah, it's one of the last things they did, and then that carried over. And
like I said, that entire album of, you know, Electra Descending, At the Wall, just like all of the when evening comes, all of those songs are phenomenal. Ashes is not, Ashes is okay, it's a little wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Face on Ashes
Yeah.
is like the a fire track, just comes out of nowhere. Could someone take care of the bot in the chat, please? I don't know if Rue is still there. Rue, take care of this bot, or anybody who's a mod.
What's the
Somebody.
bot saying? What are they
The
selling?
bot is selling it's, as you can see, I'll just flash it for
I
you because I
can't see
can't
it.
say it on the air. You
Oh,
can't see it?
okay. No,
Yeah.
okay.
It's just one of those situations.
Now you piqued my curiosity there.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah, we get them every once in a while. Sometimes we get various distractions from time to time. So I have mods in here that help out because they're on the streams. Rue has been with me since for 2 years now. Rue has been
I see
been
Rue's
there.
name in here every time I pop in. Good.
Yeah. We have a nickname from Rue Morg. And what was amazing is Robbie Bloodshed, who's a friend of the show and comes on a lot. Rob, they threw a whole show. They put together a show under the banner of this kind of show, or whatever this is, in Lodi at the VFW, where Glenn's mom used to volunteer.
I saw some of that video. Yeah.
Okay, so
from
you know.
Robbie. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it was really cool to like meet people that like came on the chat, but I've never met in real life. They were all there. It was such a wonderful little like just sort of, I don't know, meet and greet, like celebration, like we all meeting and greeting each other and hanging out, and it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, cool.
I love it because to me it's it and I commented this a while ago under like my YouTube name was like something else, something weird. But all this takes me back to why I love your show, and especially all the Misfits or whatever you want to call it, related stuff, is it reminds me of the Misfits Bible and Mark Kennedy and all that stuff in the 90s.
Right.
Because as a little, really a little boy, like at 12 years old, I discovered this band, between the fact that Metallica was the biggest band in the world and all this stuff. And somebody bought me, I think for my 12th birthday or something like that, a coffee table book on Metallica. And it was all pre-Black Album era. So every fucking shirt, every photo, someone's wearing a Misfits shirt.
Right.
And, it was before the internet. And I don't think you and I are too much. You're what, mid-30s?
I'm 85.
Okay. I was born December 82. So I'm 39 now.
Yeah.
And so, and it took me till I was in high school before I put two and two together that the singer of Danzig was the singer of the Misfits. Just, whatever.
And what was your reaction at that time? Did it just like melt your mind?
It made sense, but I just was like, because I, was still, maybe I was in 8th grade, to correct myself, because super nerdy with that stuff. But I glommed on, and then I somehow stumbled across, in the adolescent form of the internet, this Misfits Bible thing, and used to go back and forth. And I used to email with John and Erie and Bobby and all these people. And, I was a kid. I was like 12, 13, 14. And it was really sort of kind of shaped a lot of what has now become sort of inadvertently a career. But it just meant so much to me, as arguably probably similar to yourself, where like the Misfits, Samhain, Danzig is sort of encompasses my favorite band artist,
Right.
And
totally.
Up there with like Bowie and Alice Cooper and Johnny Cash and stuff like that. And then, I went on with my life, and sorry, Angus. And then I came across this, your thing. I think it was the Lodi thing.
They came from Lodi.
Yeah, I heard about that. It had to have been at least a year ago, if not longer.
2 years ago? Oh, shit.
18 months ago.
Okay. I didn't know that.
And I was like, all right. And I caught a couple of your shows a couple times. And then I was like, I want to talk to this guy. I want to be involved, because like I consider Doyle a friend now. I don't want to do name droppy shit, but like Zing is a friend. I talked to Bobby not too long ago, maybe last month, about some stuff I'll tell you another time. And, so it's gone from being like my favorite type of band to like, Doyle shoot me a text on my birthday. Hey, bro, miss you, love you, happy birthday. And I'm like,
Nice.
you're like, right on, bro. Nice to hear from you. And then I go, wait a minute, hang on. My 16-year-old self is going to cry, but it's
Yeah.
such a great thing. And I just appreciate your format and honoring all of that kind of stuff. Cause there's so many of us fiends out there. I remember when American Psycho came out and I was like, wait, there's a new Misfits album, and I love it. I love all that. So I again, I'm overstating the obvious, but I really dig the show. And I think it's just a really cool thing to,
You know what it is?
participate in.
It's just about like acknowledging the fact that we love this shit, not apologizing for it, because everybody has to apologize for the shit that they love.
No.
And it's just like, without having to be too cool for school. And it's like, hey, look, if you want to talk about like minutia, that's literally what the internet is for. Like, I never understand when people get upset. To me, they're like, dude, like, why are you analyzing these lyrics? Like, shut up. And it's like, dude, this is the internet.
Yeah.
There's like a billion videos. And like, we want to analyze lyrics. So what? So don't watch it. Like, that's the whole
don't yuck on my yums, bro.
Don't yuck on my yums, dude. Don't yuck on my yums. No, but it's like, and that's, I mean, all of this stuff is born out of that, whatever this like thing that, whatever this developed thing is, all born out of like the passion for pouring over it and talking. And absolutely, yes, it totally comes originally. Mark Kennedy was the template. And I interviewed Mark many, many years ago for this project. This project I had been in development for years and years and years. And I kept it off the internet for many obvious reasons. And then one day was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to start talking about this stuff because I feel like it. And suddenly this stuff that I had, literally all of this stuff that I talk about on the internet that I had kept to myself for years, the guy who never shuts the fuck up, like, or who would shut the fuck up for many, many years, suddenly never shuts the fuck up. And I just started talking about it. And you know what? Now Steve Zing decides to call me when we've started the thing. I can't talk, Steve. It'll have to wait.
I'm gonna text him and be like, "Why are you interrupting my show, bro?"
Yeah, dude, that's what it's all about. And that was a little bit. So my time with Misfit Central starts in the aughts, a little bit later, like 2000, maybe 2001 is when the chat, the forum was very, very lively. And then that disappeared with the advent of like Facebook, made that obsolete. And now it's like, it doesn't exist. Everything's on Facebook now. And you just suddenly, like never before, even more so than all the people that were on Misfit Central and, just whatever, everybody has found themselves in Facebook or whatever and starts to connect and tweet and pour over this stuff. And it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, at the end of the day, regardless of, whatever, I'm always a fan first. So, like I was just some dorky kid, and the fact that I get to play in a band for a living or whatever, or worked with or talk to whoever, it's like I was a fan first. And so it's still carries through. And you're saying like, talking about too cool or anything like that. I mean, like I'm in a house full of horror movie posters and toys and like dogs, and like there's no such thing as too cool. It's like I want my whole life to be like an episode of Scooby-Doo. It should be like spooky and fun. I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm with my nose stuck up in the air. That's not cool.
So let me ask you this. So okay, so you have the Metallica coffee table book, and you're looking through and you see those shirts, and what do you remember going through your mind when you're seeing those shirts and like, does that make you itchy? Does that like send you on like a sort of a quest to learn more?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you about 30 seconds of backstory. So by that point, 11, 12 years old, pre-teens. So 12. All my bonding with my father at that time was mostly over horror movies. He was a big fan of all the classic black and white stuff, and turned me on to Vincent Price and Christopher Lee and all the obvious stuff. And so I had a as a kid, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was already passionate about horror movies.
Right.
And I also lived with a single mom who would do the whole, she had her 2 jobs back to back, and she'd run me into the video store, pick something out, come back in the car, and let's go. And I'd go home and I'd have like Return of the Living Dead or Creep Show or House on Haunted Hill or whatever. I'd be clutching my VHS. Like, I hope she doesn't see the cover. I hope she doesn't see that it's Hellraiser 2 and that there's boobies in it or whatever.
Right.
And so I was already there. And then another thing, I guess, that ties in is my cousin is Mark Lester, who directed Commando and Firestarter and Class of '84.
Dude, your cousin is your cousin is Mark Lester?
Yeah, his mom is my mom's sister. She's
holy shit.
She's almost 100, but I talk to her probably twice a week. Her name's Jerry. I love her to death. She's like my
God bless, man.
Would be my grandmother. And Mark is would be the same age as my mom. My mom's passed as well. And so Mark and his sister, my cousins, are the same age as my mom. So they were kind of raised around the same thing. So Mark's mom is was kind of like the matriarch of the family. So she was always kind of like my mom's mom, if that makes sense. And so ergo, kind of like my grandmother. And when you and I confirmed this, a week ago or whatever, I was on the phone with Jerry, with Mark's mom. And so I was on set for Class of '99. I'm getting goosebumps as a little boy. So are you familiar with the sequel, Class of '99?
I fucking love Class of '99.
So do I. So when the robot's climbing up the ladder,
yes,
at the end, like the climax, I was on set for that.
Wow.
And I don't know what year that was. I was single digits still, but just between my relationship with my dad, it was like 88, maybe 89, 90.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
90, 91, maybe. Yes. I had to have been still single digits. So these little things, with the Mark, and then I wanted to do movie makeup, special effects, and my dad and all these things. And then combined with like discovering Metallica and all this stuff, living in the suburbs and whatnot, and getting kind of adjusted to like what we now know as punk rock. I was like, there's this band called the Ram Ones I want to check out,
The Ram Ones.
And I just saw it, it all looked kind of spooky, vaguely spooky. I was like, Skull, Misfits, Fiend Club. What is this? And I went to a record store and I got a copy of Walk Among Us. And I just remember picking it up and looking at it and being like, it looks kind of like Kiss, like kind of goofy, but still kind of spooky. But I remember turning it over and looking at the song titles and being like, this sounds like horror movie songs. And, you're a kid. I got my allowance. I took it home. It was probably like $8.99. And a light switch turned on. And I was like, oh, this is my favorite band forever. This is it. And, kind of went through that whole thing. And then shortly after Collection 2 came out, I remember getting that and not understanding, because the internet was such a, I had to like go to the library to use it. It wasn't just like on my phone. And so I was trying to,
oh my God, dogpile.com.
Yeah. Trying to like decipher, like, why is this song only on this album? And why does this sound so much better and all these things? And I remember going to my dad and being like, there's a band and they have a song called Vampira. Remember that terrible movie called Plan 9 you made me watch? Well, there's a song about it, and him being totally unimpressed. And and then that, talking to my sister about that, I have a much older sister, and she was like, oh yeah, now you're ready to hear The Damned. Okay, let's take you down the rabbit hole.
Oh, nice. Oh, so she turned you on.
And weirdly enough, she just texted me. That's so strange. And then I went. I just went down the sort of, I guess, punk rock rabbit hole, but I was also listening to stuff that, I was listening to beforehand, like the Beach Boys and Chubby Checker and Johnny Cash. So do I. Yeah, I just saw him here in Nashville about a month ago. And then, Metallica and Soundgarden, all the things that were going on. And then getting into punk rock, but not knowing that it was called punk rock, but just your friend's older brother being like, here's this tape. It's this band called the Dead Kennedys. You're ready for this, and then I got into
Passage.
Rite of Passage. A couple years went by. I got into high school. That's when it became clicky. It was like the punks here, the goth kids here, the metal kids here. You had to be one or the other. And I was like, well, I like all these things. By that time, I already had like Only Theater of Pain on cassette and Atrocities, and just I liked what I liked. And I think I carry that through into adulthood with my record collection is super eclectic. I'll go from Carcass to Enya in an afternoon, like without flinching, just because I like what I like.
I like eclectic. I'm
Yeah.
eclectic as well. I jump, I run the gambit, and I think that it just makes us more well-rounded,
Oh, absolutely.
we don't
Absolutely.
have to be on brand. You don't have to fit into this box. I was just looking up Mark L. Lester's filmography while you were talking because I wanted
Yeah.
to confirm. Okay, so he did Commando.
Yeah.
He did Firestarter. So I have Scream Factory edition of Class of '84, and I also have '99 somewhere. And then there's
Yeah.
Class of 1999 Part 2,
Yeah.
which is so like
So
weak
bad.
sauce. It's
He
not good.
also produced Funhouse, which was that
With
Hooper
Toby
movie.
Hooper.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. You're friggin' related to Mark Lester, dude.
Yeah. I tried to wrangle him because for a while I was doing some periodic convention appearances, which was a blast, which is how I got to become friends with a lot of the sort of horror community actors and directors and stuff, like people we know. And I tried to wrangle him in to do some convention appearances because he'd never really done them, at least domestically.
Right.
And it didn't end up working out. I can't remember why, but I was really hoping that he would make an appearance here or there because I know there's so many people that love those films.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Really, truly.
And his name is escaping me. It's on the tip of my tongue. Australian actor. He plays Wes in Road Warrior. He's got a mohawk.
Yeah, friggin' I'm going to be interviewing him.
Really?
Vernon Wells. I'm going
Vernon
to be
Wells. Thank you.
I met the Mahoney. At the Mahoney Drive-In. We're doing 2 Q&As. I'm conducting 2 Q&As with Vernon Wells.
What are they showing?
So it's all Mad Max movies. It's Mad Max Road Warrior on one night. That's the Joe Bob Briggs thing. And then it's Thunderdome and Fury Road the next night. And I don't know if I'm doing both Q&As or just one that was not made clear to me. I was just told, and Tank, who was on the show and is Jonathan Grimm, who did the first the Grimm Tales. He's involved with the event, and his wife, who, what's funny is he met his wife. They just had a baby girl. They met because they were doing a documentary about Tank, who called the human action figure, because he does a lot of like cosplaying stuff and whatnot. But he's known as the Humongous. He's known, like, people actually have taken photos of Tank and share them around the internet, and people think that it's the original.
He's humongous.
Except he has a Misfits tattoo on his arm, and that's how. I mean, I could tell. You could tell because, like, he's very, very period accurate with all of his cosplay stuff. He's like meticulous, which comes from his Misfits. It's
just step away from the gasoline.
Yeah. He's great, dude. Tank is such a fan. Trip. But yeah, Vernon Wells, dude, is the shit.
I met him at a convention, and it didn't occur to me that he's in Commando.
Yes, he is.
And he's got the convention says 8x10s, and I was like, oh, I just I hadn't watched the movie in a minute. Yeah. And then I said, Mark is my cousin, and he goes, no, because we had met already just from the organizer of the thing. And I was like, hang on. And I was like, beep, beep, boop, boop. And I was like, Mark, I'm here with Vernon Wells. And he goes, please tell him I said hello. And he was, I haven't talked to him since '85,
That's great.
So, very cool. Oh, I love that. And you mentioned Joe Bob. I just got tickets to his show here in Nashville next month. I'm such a same thing
what's he
with
doing
my
out
dad.
there? What's he doing out there?
He's touring the what is it?
The Last Drive-In or whatever, or
it's more specific than that. It's like how the drive-in saved something or whatnot. And nice. I assume it's kind of like a spoken word thing, but he's also appearing at a convention at the same time. But I actually tying into that, I just did a song.
Did I freeze or did Mark? Who froze, guys? Did I freeze or did he freeze?
Did I freeze?
I don't know. It might have been me. That happens sometimes. I'm sorry. Are you okay? We're back. Go ahead. Continue. I'm listening.
The most recent episode of Joe Bob Briggs, The Last Drive-In, had a song in it called Stick Shift Drive-In Love that I co-wrote and performed on.
Oh, cool. We gotta check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. John Brennan, the music director supervisor, and I started going back and forth kind of like your Christopher Jimenez story, just on the
Yeah.
internet. Like, hey, he was like, "Oh, I love LA Guns," and I was like, "Dude, I love the show. I'm a fan going back to Monster Vision, watching in the '90s with my dad, right? And just thanks for the what's up, And he goes, "Would you ever want to collaborate on something?" I was like, "Fucking yeah, yes. How about tomorrow?" And so he sent me something maybe a month or two later, and we went back and forth. And then it was kind of like hush, and I was like, "I guess I'll hear when I hear." And he goes, "Okay, so we're just shot this sequence for your song," and Joe Bob's all
Awesome.
dressed up. He looks like he's in Steel Panther. And it was one of those things where, as like again, as a fan, I was like, "Oh, it's dorky," but I was like, "This is so cool!" Like, to be involved. And they're pressing it on a 7-inch. I was like, "That's awesome. That's awesome."
So can we? I just without running the full gambit, to touch on your musical career for a minute.
Yeah,
you have been in a lot of different bands, and they are in a lot of different genres of music, some of which I am incredibly unversed in. Like, I know I know very, very little about LA Guns. I know that was like eventually that band split off into two
Guns
different
N'
other
Roses.
bands, right? Yeah, Guns N' Roses, right?
Yeah.
And you were also involved with Faster Pussycat and US Bombs. Where you're not, like, that's what's interesting about you, it seems, as a musician. Like, a lot of musicians in general, not that they necessarily are like stay in a box, but generally when it comes to like what they're doing, it's like they're in a box. You seem to sort of run the gambit. Like, you're very versatile in going from, like, say, punk rock to, I don't know what you what the appropriate genre you would say is metal, some sort of metal for
80s like hard rock,
80s hard rock,
rock,
like
hair metal, is sleaze
yeah.
rock. Yeah, there's so many subgenres or nicknames or derogatory marks or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I kind of ended up there inadvertently. If you want to, because I'm kind of accustomed to it, I can give you the like 90-second rundown from
do it. I don't know it. Tell me, let's hear it.
Okay, so I say I can do this real quick. I started a band in my junior year in high school, so I was 17 years old. Actually started on my 17th birthday, and within 6 months we were playing with national acts. We actually played with the Misfits.
Oh, nice.
And we became, within 1 year period, because we were only a band for about 2 years, by that point my mom and my stepdad moved me to San Diego. So from 15 to 19 I lived in San Diego. And so within a year, within 6 months, we were playing with Youth Brigade and the Misfits and the UK Subs, and then even like Buck 09 and Something Corporate, and like all these, anything punk adjacent. And then within a year or less, I started becoming, I guess, a promoter, and I would bring bands down, like national acts, and I would bring the Skulls down, and the Partisans from the UK came over. I booked their show, and there were so many people that I knew then that have also now graduated to a career. Like my buddy Kevin was in a band called the Skulls. We used to play together all the time. He's about a year younger than me, and now he's in Green Day. So there's a lot of guys I knew when I was cutting my teeth that also kind of, we've sort of met. I ran into a guy here in town that I hadn't seen since I was 20. So we hadn't seen each other in 18 years. And now he's in a band called Bayside, and they're huge. And so, and I shortly thereafter meeting him, or before I met him, took them on one of their first tours when I was in another band. So I'll get there. So then that band, I met a bunch of people, and then it got to the point where people were asking me to join their band on guitar. I got invited to go audition for a band called One Man Army from the Bay Area. That never came to fruition. I got asked to join a band called The Generators from Los Angeles. So I'll come back to that. I got asked to join a band called Madcap out of LA as well. That had a little record deal. And so, because I was booking, I would bring them down, and somebody would quit or get fired or whatever, and they'd be like, "That guy was cool." Long story long, I agreed to join Madcap. Me and some buddies start a fun band for shits and giggles called Cheap Sex. The name was supposed to be, tongue in cheek. And we do an album. I probably did 5 shows with the band, and then I went and focused on Madcap. I joined that band. I was 19 years old. Those guys gave me, before I got to my first show in Florida, as part of my hazing, made me drive across country in this Econoline,
Oh man.
pulling a trailer, and I'm like 19, like, oh my God. And that was where I first got my nickname Ace, coming from those guys. I saved us from getting in an accident. My singer was all a little partied out of his mind. He's like, you Ace that, man. The new guy, Ace, check him out.
Ace.
And so
I love it.
It's nuts. It had nothing to do with Kiss. And it took about two years before I stopped hating it, because I hated it for a while. But now
I think it's awesome. It's awesome.
Thanks. And so did that. We toured for, incessantly, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months out of the year, just back to back to back. Put out a record on Victory with producer Ted Hutt, which was cool. He went on to win a Grammy with my buddy Brian and the Gaslight Anthem. And so that band dissolved. By that point, I was like 21, 22. I went back to the Generators. My first tour with them was in Europe, supporting the U.S. Bombs. I already had a relationship with Dwayne Peters by that point from a bunch of little things. And Kerry Martinez, the lead guitar player in that band, and I were already buddies, and is still a really close friend of mine. And I did that. I got close with a guy named Todd Youth at that point.
Oh, I know Todd Youth. Yep.
And Todd had a band called the Chelsea Smiles, whose bass player keeps texting me. His name's Johnny Martin. Johnny Martin is currently in LA Guns. So, so I'm sort of segueing slowly out of punk rock. And
wait, can I just interrupt 1 second?
Sure.
So Chelsea Smiles. So that's also when Todd leaves Danzig along with Howie Pyro
to start what was originally called something else.
Right, because they had a deal, but the deal fell through.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they had a deal with a major.
Right, and then that eventually evolved into Chelsea Smiles. Got it.
Correct. Yeah. And I never got on stage with them, but I was set to fill in with them. They had some shows with Cheap Trick. I don't remember the timeline, but I was later on. I was already in Pussycat by that point. And then the Cheap Trick shows got canceled, and I was so bummed because I just wanted to see Cheap Trick 3 nights in a row. But so I was a protege of Todd Youth, and at some point, excuse me, it's that pizza coming up. At some point, there was a Murphy's Law tour of Japan. It was like 30 days. And which is kind of like touring California. It's a really relatively small country. And so he goes, I know you can deal with, Dwayne Peters and crazy volatile people. You can easily deal with Jimmy G and Murphy's Law. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, fucking, I love Murphy's Law, Quest for Herb. And so he put me on the phone with Jimmy, and he was like, what's up? Todd says you're a tough kid. And I was like 22 or 3 already. And there's so many other things that I'm missing. Like, I lived with, are you familiar with the Bouncing Souls?
Dude, yes, and I interviewed them many, many years ago. Yes.
So the Greg, the singer, his wife, Shanti, she was a solo artist for a while. So I was her guitar player around that time too. And I lived with her and Greg for probably 2 years.
Wow.
Actually, do you know the Gold album, the Gold record?
Yes, I do.
I sing on that.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, backup vocals. If you look in the tiny liner notes, it's like Chuck. It's Chuck.
2012, maybe?
No, way before that. It's like 05, maybe.
Okay.
Anyhow, it's just a little you want the Cliff Notes version. I'm trying to get all the cool parts.
Right.
So I do a thing with Murphy's Law. We used to like 2 shows in the New York area. We go to Japan. We do 29 shows and 32
was that your first experience in Japan going there? Have you been there? Have you been there before?
No, that was my first and only time there, and it
must have been magical, dude.
Oh my God, I've had 4 Japanese tours get canceled on me over the last 10 years, so I've just given up on it ever happening again. But
it'll happen again.
I hope so. But I love it over there. I love the culture. The people are very courteous and kind. The food, as a guy who's like a sushi guy, and Asian food, I was just loving it. And they're so enamored with American pop culture. So there was just so much. It's kind of like being in Times Square, but in Japanese. So it was just everywhere.
Can I say one other thing too? What I find very interesting, it's funny that you bring that up. You said they're so enamored with American culture. What's interesting is you'll see. And I don't want to I don't want to get into a whole thing, people. I'm just bringing this up because we're specifically talking about Japan and the Japanese. There's a lot. Sometimes you hear, point is, I'm not trying to put a thing out there about what I think about cultural appropriation or not about cultural appropriation. What I want to say is in context of the Japanese. The Japanese, they honor and they venerate things that they didn't necessarily come up with and that they embody. You see it in a variety of different subcultures. I don't even want to get into what they are. There are tons of them. And it just is, it never gets brought up in the conversation about this idea of like, is there cultural appropriation? What is cultural appropriation?
Yeah.
Because you look at the Japanese and how they love this thing and that they're so respectful of it and that they embody it and that they embody it with respect. Yeah. And that it comes from this place of deep admiration. It's not about like, exploitation of any kind. It's like, I love this thing and I'm just like, I want to make it a part of my life. And nobody does that better than the Japanese. It's like this beautiful thing. And I've seen various different Vice videos about how like you just have all like there's the rockabilly thing.
Oh, yeah.
But just like there's all these different very interesting sort of subcultures in Japan. And it's an interesting thing to add to that whole conversation, controversy, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, please continue.
No, okay, that's just good. Yeah, no, but you're right. They're definitely. I mean, there's like a LA Guns tribute band in Japan. I forgot LO. I think it's LO Guns. And
nice.
And there's like a guy that when I joined the band, then was like messaged me that was like, "How do I look like you?" Like, I was like, okay, that's cool. So I went to Japan then, and at the same time, I was still working with Dwayne. We had a project called the Dwayne Peters Gunfight. I joined before the first album came out, although I'm not on it. And then we did a second record later on. Also did the thing we kind of touched on this earlier this week. Did that sort of flash in the pan project with Dwayne and then Greg Keane from TSOL.
That is so cool that you played with fucking Greg, dude.
So we had that project called The Great Unwashed, and so that was cool just because I really admire his body of work working with X and Bob Dylan and TSOL, obviously.
You worked with Bob Dylan? What did he do with
Bob
Dylan?
Yeah, he was like his touring keyboard player. He was with Berlin for a long time. He was with The Church for a long time. I think he's on that big Church album, the one with
really.
Oh, what's that ballad? That beautiful ballad. Whatever the biggest song by The Church is.
Okay, he plays on that.
He's on that record. Of course, I can hear the melody, but I can't explain it.
Are you familiar with Fiddler at all?
Oh yeah.
That blows my mind too.
When we were rehearsing for The Great Unwashed, it was at Greg's house, so his kids were already kind of like popping up and like you could tell they were kind of like getting interested in music.
Max and Elvis. That's so cool, man. That is so freaking cool.
My girlfriend just texted me. Under the Milky Way is the song I'm thinking of by The Church. And thank you, babe. And
thank you for the help.
Yeah. And God, it's a great song. And so, but working with Greg was cool. He's such a great guy and so talented. He does a lot of scoring and stuff. So blah, 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 Murphy's Law. And then that kind of segued to eventually I would join the Bombs briefly. We did a whole 2-month tour of Europe, which was a disaster. Dwayne got not fired, but went home, and we had Texas Terry sing for some songs and just like random, just a mess. And then I came home, and at some point, the guy that was booking all of Dwayne Peters' stuff is a guy named Charlie Overby. And here's where it gets sort of more into like my career. And so Charlie, I was probably 24, 25. Charlie goes, "Hey man, like, I see you playing with the Gunfight and whatever. You look cool. You long hair, tattooed guy. What are you doing in these punk bands? You should be in like a rock band." And I was like, "This is my meal ticket right here." I said, "Well, what do you got?" And he says, "Oh, I saw that tour, the Agnostic Front, Dropkick, US Bombs tour, great package. Way back, Hellcat Records tour, like 99 or something like that."
He says maybe it was 98.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Perfect. Great lineup. And so he brought me into this project called Charlie and the Valentine Killers. Don't look for it. It's really, I don't think there's anything digitally, but we, because my singer was a booking agent, he had his finger on the pulse of all this stuff. And so his band was, at the time, it was like Brian Forsyth from Kix, who ironically lives a walking distance from me now. Jerry Montano on bass, who we know.
Jerry.
Yes, Jerry is arguably probably the closest thing to a big brother I've ever had, or one of. And
Such an awesome dude. Sorry, continue.
good people,
Awesome
good.
dude.
I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for Jerry. And so Jerry and Chad Stewart, who is in Faster Pussycat and was at the time as well, and just rotating guys. And so I joined this band, and we went out on tour with David Allen Coe. We did some shows with Reverend Horton Heat. We did some shows with Headcat, with Lemmy and Slim Jim from Stray Cats. And,
wow.
And so I really shifted, but it was kind of an Americana. It was like Social Distortion meets Springsteen or something like that, and or the Heartbreakers or whatever, Tom Petty. And I was meeting guys and working with guys, and that's how Jerry was like, I'm going to start a band. And then now we're 20 years, or not 20 years, 15, 12 years later, we're talking about doing more music together. And so he brought me, the Humpers. I talk to Rob every once in a while. Great band.
I like the Humpers a lot.
I do too. And so Jerry brought me into his thing, which segued into us doing a record with a guy named James Murray, who's no longer with us. James is the guy. I don't know how much, digging you did, but James brought me in on a session for one of the first Michael Jackson posthumous sessions they did for his album, Michael. And
whoa. Okay. Pause the tape.
Sure.
Pause the tape. Wait, you're telling me you played on Michael Jackson tracks?
I played on a Michael Jackson track that at the last minute got cut from the album.
Holy shit.
Womp, womp. It's out there. And if you want that story, I'll tell it to you.
Yes.
So James, I met, he's no longer with us, but James was a big engineer. I mean, he did like a ton of like kind of new metal stuff. I think like Disturbed and Drowning Pool, maybe. You'd have to look. James Murray. But he's out. His resume speaks for itself. And then he and his partner were the ones that would do like the overnight mixes for American Idol. And he started working with all these big producers and all this stuff. And eventually he ended up taking on a chunk of the songs for the album called Michael, which was the first Michael Jackson album, posthumously after he passed.
Right.
And they basically said, Jeff, you're producing these 4 songs. My dog over here is producing these 4 songs. This producer's getting these 4 songs, and he's getting for these 4 songs. And whoever sort of turned in the best product, the estate and the label would pick and choose and whatever. And I'm trying to really condense this story real quick. We were out drinking one night at the Burgundy Room in Hollywood, and I was already in Pussycat, so I was probably like 26, 27, and 27, 28. And so, what are you working on? Oh, just finishing up these MJ sessions, right on. And he's, some guitars to do tomorrow. And I'm like, dude, fucking what's up, man? Call me, bro. And he was like, oh yeah, it's not up to me, blah, blah, blah. And so we're drinking, and it's, 1 a.m. He's all right, fuck it. You want to just come mess around the studio? And so I show up, we get there, we jump on his Harley. We're both stupid idiot drunk. And we go over the hill into Burbank. And we walk in the studio, and I was like, do I need anything? And he's like, it's this big deal studio. We got everything here. And they had, I don't know the timeline or what album or whatever, it's none of my business, but Linkin Park was in there that following week, and they had cleared out all the equipment. And he was like, shit, 2 days ago, there were all these guitars, and there was nothing. And then there was like a broom closet with like this dirty old white Stratocaster. And he was like, because it wasn't meant to be.
Wait, anything. So this is at 1 a.m.
This is at like 3 a.m.
Oh and my God.
And so he goes, do you want to hear the track? And I just remember being like, I don't want to hear it. I just want to know what the BPM is, like the tempo, and what key it's in. And he goes, it's in A minor, and it's like 118. And I said, all right, so I'm playing this Strat plugged in direct, and he, you can change it through the computer and all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just jamming along. And he goes, all right, do another one. We do another one, do 3 takes. And then he puts his, he grabs his cans. He goes, all right, you're done. Hang on. And he puts his headphones on, and he starts chopping, because that's what he does. And about 5 minutes go by, and he plays me this song with these, like, the little accent things I did. And he goes, yeah, it's pretty cool, right? I said, yeah. And I recorded it on my phone. I've got it somewhere on an old phone. And I'm like, yeah, no, play it again. So check it out. That's not where the story ends. That's just bogus. Yeah. That's bogus. So we go by that point, it's the sun's coming up. We go to some diner, we get breakfast. He drives me home, blah, blah, blah. I get a phone call at like 9 a.m. frantic. And he goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, hungover and sleeping. He's like, I need you to get back to the studio now. the producer, whose name is Nephew, he's a Grammy-winning Michael Jackson, Dr. Dre, all these huge hip hop artists, is here, and he likes what you did.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I, throw myself together and I go over there, and basically they just wanted me to punch up the guitar solo, and they had me come back again, and there was like a room full of like adults in suits kind of thing, like, I don't know about that. And off it went. And I had this delusions of grandeur, like my, looking at my one award here, and, picturing my platinum Michael Jackson featuring Ace Von Johnson, my ego's growing 6 sizes. And so he calls me about 3 or 4 months later, and he goes, I got some good news, I got some bad news. And I said, well, give me the bad news first. He goes, your song did not make the album. And I was like, I'm on tour. I was in like a truck stop somewhere, and I was like, it's cool. That's fine. That's fine. And so he goes, it was turned in by another producer, Ted Templeman, maybe, who turned in an alternate version that the label and the people in charge liked better. And it was more of a hip hop contemporary.
So it's
Michael
the same
Jackson
track. It's the same Michael Jackson vocals, but they went in a completely different direction from it.
Yep, they scratched the entire bed tracks and just build their way up. They go, here's the tempo, and here's the key and the vocals, and they just build everything underneath, which is now, studio magic you can do over in 5 minutes now.
Right.
So they scratch it. He goes, the upside is Nephew really dug your vibe, and we want to have you back when we work on the next batch of stuff. So better than nothing. And he goes, and it'll probably come out eventually on some 20-year deluxe edition or whatever, because they mixed and mastered it and turned it in. It was done. I have a baked hard copy of it that's like, this is what was supposed to go on the album.
Wow.
To the masses.
So you say mastered and everything.
Yeah, done. And so a couple years go by, and I was talking to a girlfriend of mine who's a huge entertainment lawyer. She handles like household name people. And James had passed away maybe 6 months after. He was in a terrible motorcycle accident. And
sorry to hear that.
So thank you, and me too. And so that obviously nothing ever came from it. And I never got paid for the session. I never got anything. And so she was like, you have some kind of like squatter's rights now. And obviously you'd be going up against the Jackson estate. So basically, long story long, she advised me to bootleg the track. And so I put it on SoundCloud maybe, or one of those hosting sites, and it stayed up there for maybe a year, and it got all this sort of internet buzz traction, like the alternative version of the single Hollywood Tonight, out now, produced by alternate blah blah, featuring faster Pussycat guitar player Ace Von Johnson. And then every time I did press, it was like everyone wanted to talk about it because it was so new and like kind of concurrent.
That's what you got out of it, ultimately.
That's what I got out of it.
You got this story. I mean, that you really got to play.
And then people bootlegged it. So if you go on Google or YouTube and type in Ace Von Johnson, Michael Jackson, you've collaborated with Michael Jackson.
It's
a stretch, but it's more tangible than a guy in his home studio pulling raw tracks.
You got to a place where you yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This was intended for the album. It's like it would have been legit. So I don't know if anything will ever come from it, or if they'll ever do anything with it. I hope so, just because I would love the credit. But it's gotten my foot in the door with a ton of other gigs we probably don't have time to get into. But it would be the kind of thing where there's bands I've auditioned for that were much bigger than gigs I've ever even had, where they would be like, so who are you and what have you done? I'd be like, oh, I did a session for the Michael album. They'd be like, come on in,
Right. That's exactly, So you didn't get paid, but you get this really cool story.
Oh, yeah.
You did get, you were on, how about this? You were on a official Michael Jackson session, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that there's definitely
that's not anymore.
Benefit.
That to like Murphy's Law to like LA Guns is like these weird.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's really, really nuts. And so now here's what I sort of filed away as you were telling that story.
Yeah.
Why, excuse me, that's the seltzer. Why did you only want the tempo or the whatever the hell you said, BPM? Yeah. Why only that when you're doing the track?
I just wanted the key and the BPM because I kind of wanted to know what sort of vibe I was getting into. Because he was like, "Do you want to hear it first?" And I said, "No." I said, "I just want to."
Why didn't you want to hear it first?
I guess because a lot of times your first impression is what, what's coming out of me in a first impression is just this innate sort of natural thing. And had I heard it 5 times, like normally, like if you were like, come play on my album, you send me a track, I'm going to listen to it 2 or 3 times and decipher what I'm going to do and blah, blah, blah. It gets a little watered down versus like, all right, go, here it is. It's in this key. This is the tempo. Here it is. So,
That makes sense.
Actually, the chorus riff that I play in that song, there's a little tag, and it's sort of like a sussy chord that's basically the same thing as No More Mr. Nice Guy from Alice Cooper.
Wow. I mean, listen, and Michael Jackson does have a history. I mean, Eddie Van Halen and Slash, like he does work with rock people, he does. There's a whole precedent for having a Michael Jackson track like that. As a matter of fact, something that I've sort of, I was at I think we were at like one of those like record swap things, and we were talking about Michael Jackson. It's amazing. If you watch Michael Jackson, probably 91 to all the way up until the time he died, but really in the 90s, and then contrast that with like live 84 to 87, there is a stark contrast in his performance. You can really see the wear and the toll that everything took on him. Whereas in the 80s, you look at him like on the Dangerous tour in like 87, he is on fire.
Peak form. He's still a young man. He's not jaded yet. Yeah.
Yep.
He's not going through the motions. Yeah.
He's not going through the motions. Exactly, Ace. And when you watch him in like 94 or something, and you just see every move is dialed in. I don't want to listen. I don't want to take away from like one of the greatest performers that ever lived, like his output or what he did. Cause I'm just a guy on the internet.
Same.
However, from just watching performances and like just sort of taking it in, it's just, you see the diminished return, the wear and tear on his body. That dude was putting 2 hours every night. And you're a musician, a performer, you understand the toll that it takes to do a live show, but you're playing guitar, not to diminish what you do, and that playing guitar is its own animal. But the idea of dancing the way that Michael Jackson danced and sang every night. And then people are like, it's like, it's not hard to figure out, amongst other things, why he was essentially putting himself under with like medical grade fentanyl.
Oh, of course. I mean, the road, it's like, people are always like, I'll complain about I have a permanent back injury or whatever you want to call it, but, or whatever. And they're like, oh, but I'm not young anymore, but they're like, oh, you're so young. I go, it's not the years, it's the mileage.
Yeah.
You have to take that into consideration. And
for sure,
being a full-time, at least pre-COVID, I've got 20 years of tour under my belt since I was 19 to 39 now. And obviously without the pandemic, but it can be arduous and physically exhausting. And you're like, I'm in a bus, playing in front of, whatever, 500 people or 300 people or 1,000 people or 12 people.
Sure.
And it's like, I don't know when I'm going to eat. I don't know when I'm going to get a shower. I don't know when I get to go home. That stuff can rack on your brain and your physicality. But so the MJ thing happened, blah, blah, blah. That gig, the Charlie and the Valentine Killers gig, segued into Pussycat when I was 26. It sort of had a false start there. Became a member at 27. I did that for 10 years, from 10 to 19. I did a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. I I was in Unwritten Law for maybe 8 months. Did some shows with them, which was an experience. And and then I became friends with all these bands from this genre and this era. Like the guys in Skid Row or whatever it is. And and I would go play guitar with Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses.
Right.
I'd go to his
Adler,
house.
right?
Yeah, Adler. And actually have a band with the singer of Adler is my guitar player in a band called Neon Coven I have. And this guy named Jacob.
I want to hear about Neon Coven more, but hold on, finish what you're saying, and then tell me about Neon Coven. That's the synth thing. Yeah.
It's sort of synth wave, Nine Inch Nails-y kind of Ministry typo negative vibe. And then eventually I got the gig with LA Guns in 2018, roughly 4 years ago. I did both gigs, Pussycat and LA Guns, for one whole about a year and a half. And then
And what was that
eventually,
like? What was that like for you?
good, but a little stressful at times because I was trying to juggle both bands' calendars or schedules. And eventually I had to kind of, as my dad would say, shit or get off the pot. And
Right.
I stuck with LA Guns. And here I am. And I've done some other stuff, like talking about session work. Like, it's still not out, but remember Tiffany? I think we're alone now, Tiffany.
Yeah.
I'm on her new record that's keeps getting postponed because of COVID. I'm on
Nice.
the. I think I have some songwriting and performance, but I don't know what they're doing yet with the new 69 Eyes record. I think last year he said,
Yerky.
yeah, Yerky. I was his solo band guitar player, music director when he did his first solo record. I put a band together for him. I music directed for so many people. We were talking about Sylvain the other day before he passed. He was a Nashville guy.
Okay. Okay. Hold
He and
on.
I were
We got to
supposed to
talk
do some
about that.
stuff.
Talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that right now. Tell me
sure.
about working with Sylvain. Right. He was
Well,
in Nashville, the
yeah,
Batusis
yeah,
with
yeah.
Cheetah Chrome.
Yes,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Cheetah. Yeah. So Sylvain and I did a jam at one point. We did like, I don't know, 7 songs, and we just hit it off. And what a sweetheart. I mean, I'm a Johnny Thunders disciple through and through, aside from the heroin. And I just really respected him, and he was just a sweetheart. He was a really cool guy. And you know how it is, you have a casual friendship with somebody, you talk once every 6 months or whatever. And at some point in 2000, I'm going to call it 17, 18, he hit me up about putting together a West Coast band for him. And so I put what would have been Matt Starr, who currently plays for Ace Frehley, and then Johnny Martin, who's blowing my phone up, who now plays in LA Guns, but was in the band with Todd Youth and
Right.
also in Jesse Mallon's solo band around that time too. And then myself and Sylvain. And we had a show booked at the Whiskey, and we had a show booked, I want to say, in Orange County or San Diego, but we needed 5 or 7 shows. I can't remember what the deal was. Yeah, Tracy rules. And he's a great boss, great bandmate, great friend. And so we put the band together, and basically we couldn't make it work financially speaking. We weren't getting the numbers we were hoping for, or he was hoping for, and it went tits up, as we say. And we just, we'll circle back, we'll come back around. And then I think maybe his wife or partner was having some health issues, and then he was having some health issues. And then I remember as I was prepping to move to Nashville, I can't wait to see you, and I didn't hear back from him, and then he passed. And then that's my whole thing in a nutshell. We weren't very tight or anything, but we were buddies, and talked on the phone a few times. And he was a very sweet man, and I love the New York Dolls. I will always be a Dolls fan, and
The best.
and that's kind of, oh yeah, the best. And I actually, here's a nerd thing for you.
Yeah.
I have a cocktail napkin from Danzig's birthday at the Rainbow, maybe 6 years ago or something like that. I used to be a big guy. I used to be at the Rainbow for a lot, and had my own reserve table and everything, and my guitar on the wall and all that stuff. And one of the managers and some waitresses go, "We're gonna go. Come on, we're gonna go sing Happy Birthday to Glenn." And I was like, "Glenn." I was like, "Glenn," because I was like, "Glenn who?" And I just was like, "All right, I guess I'm going over." And we're all over there with this around a pie or something, and singing Happy Birthday. I'm like, "Oh, Glenn. Oh, okay, got it." And he walks by at the end of the night. "Thanks for singing," and we've met, but he doesn't know me from a hole in the ground. And you have to separate the fandom from the professional career, obviously, and all that stuff. And the manager gave me the cocktail napkin, and he wrote the songs he wanted to hear for his birthday. And it's New York Dolls, Personality Crisis, Ace of Spades from Motorhead, maybe something off of Welcome to Hell from Venom, and maybe 1 or 2, I can't remember what else, but I've got it down in my curio in the living room.
Nice.
It just was like a little cool nerd, like one of a kind, Glenn Danzig playlist, but New York Dolls fan.
Yes. Yeah. Danzig loves. Yes, I've heard him talk about it a whole bunch. That he he loved all that stuff, man. Lou Reed, just all that New York music. And another thing that I love about Sylvain is that he is an Egyptian Jew, which is just so, I don't know. It's just
Mizrahi.
Yes. Yeah, he's Mizrahi, exactly. Which I
love. Do you know that debut solo record of his, the pink one, Sylvain?
No, I'm not familiar with that. When did that come out?
Like 77. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
Get that record. It's like a $5. It's a $5 LP, but like you can, obviously it's on Spotify and iTunes on it. Listen, of course I'm drawing a blank, like 8th Street Kids or 10th Street Kids. And it's just, it's basically the next New York Dolls record. It's so good.
So what's interesting about that is, so that's what's interesting. So around 70, Thunders and Nolan leave in
Yeah.
74, 75. They book it out of Florida because they don't have any junk.
They
and
replaced Thunders with Blackie Lawless.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Malcolm McLaren did that.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and they did the red patent leather trip and whatnot. They go back up and they form the Heartbreakers with Richard Hell. But the Dolls continue on in a variety of different sort of flavors with the core, the nucleus of Johansson and Sylvain. And what's interesting to me is, you know, when you look at the reunion, and that to me is one of my favorite reunions ever, because it's just so, it was so well done, both critically, and it was a success in every way you could imagine. And you would think that it would be anything but. Two surviving members from this band that hadn't been together for 30 years suddenly coming back and making records, and you kind of think, how is that going to work? And it not only did it work, it was just this unbelievable thing. But the key detail is that they were doing the Dolls even after that. They kept going, and they kept going after McLaren, and they eventually stopped. And Johansson, he did his solo thing. He did a couple of solo albums that Sylvain plays on.
Yeah.
Sylvain is playing on those.
I just picked up a Johansson record like last week. Just, you know, I was like $5. Sure, why not? Yeah.
Ravner says it's on RCA.
Yeah.
And it's called the 14th Street Beat. And I want to get back and talk to you more about this. And I want to ask you some questions about the Rainbow Grill. But first, let's go to our sponsor real quick, who we mentioned up here. RiotStickers.com is in the house. And I did not know this. Sharpie Riot has worked with Tracy Tracy Guns, and says that he is an awesome dude. So we got two people saying he's an awesome dude. RiotStickers.com is the official sponsor of the Frumess channel here. As you can see right below my name, it says powered by RiotStickers.com. Here are some stickers from RiotStickers.com. Right now, we're running a special promotion with RiotStickers.com. You can get 3-inch by 3-inch stickers. That's this circumference right here, people. I mean, you get a lot of real estate right there. 3 inches by 3 inches. That's a lot of real estate to put your image on. You want to imprint something. You could vandalize. I'm not promoting vandalization. I'm just saying you could if you wanted to. You could stick your sticker on a cop car if you wanted to. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying that you could. There's many different things you can do. And normally, this special deal that we're running, it costs $59 for 53-inch by 3-inch stickers. But if you use the promo code Frumess right here, and you use the link in the description, you go first. What you're going to do is you're going to click on all of Ace's links, because all of Ace's links are also in the description. Check out Ace's Patreon, his link tree, all of this stuff. It's all down here. And below that, you're going to go, and then you're going to click on the riotstickers.com link, and you're going to enter the promo code Frumess, and that is going to bring you to the special deal where you get these 50 stickers, 3 inches by 3 inches, for $29.50. You can't beat that. It's a crazy deal. Go ahead. Go search on the internet. You find a better deal for 50 stickers than that. It's crazy. It's crazy. And we're going to play the video real quick from the guy from Less Than Jake. It's a 60-second video. I love this video. I never get tired of hearing it, and you're all going to hear it right now.
We make stickers, banners, and buttons too. Posters and promo cards. There's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads. We can print on shirts. We can print on hats. We can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality. Quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support. Great customer service and so much more. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com. Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
Yeah, and we're back.
Less Than Jake.
Less Than Jake, RiotStickers.com. Check out the banner that Sharpie printed up. Look at this. The Frumess moon face. Trip to the moon. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. Man, suddenly I want stickers. That's right. You know where to go. All right, so hold on. So let's rewind for a second because I was trying to process like 11 billion things you were talking about. We were talking about the rainbow. First, let's talk about the rainbow for a minute. So the rainbow is this. Now, I have not spent a lot of time out in LA, but I've heard, from all the various, I read tons of rock biographies and yada, 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 this and that. And there's all this sort of like LA lore, like these landmarks. You obviously have like places like the Whiskey and, but you also have the rainbow. And that's, if you were around at a certain time, you could just casually walk into the rainbow and you'd see Lemmy in the corner playing the video machine. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, correct.
So tell me, like, what is it? So what exactly, can you explain a little bit of the uniqueness of the Rainbow Bar and Grill and why it's so special?
Mid 70s through, at least the 80s and 90s, it was really like the sort of central point, as far as like the Hollywood rock scene, and kind of became a mecca of like, you're going to go there and have a slice of pie and have a cocktail, and you're going to probably see 4 or 5 rock stars or actors or some combination of. And it's sort of the quintessential spot to stop at if you're into rock and roll, or they've kind of turned it into a little bit of like a Motorhead sort of museum, almost shrine. Yeah, thank you. But since Lemmy's passed, but it's definitely, the spot. Like if you're playing at the Whiskey, you're going to go to the Rainbow before or after. It's going away now, but same thing with the Viper Room, or what used to be Gazzari's and then became the Key Club, and then now is One Oak or something like that.
Wait a minute, Rainbow's going away?
No, not Rainbow. The Viper Room.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're playing the Viper Room, it's just across the street. So right there at San Vicente. And the family that owns it, the Magliaris, which is originally Mario, and then his son Michael, and then his son Mikey, or Mike, or Michael Jr. Mike and his wife Amy are really close friends of mine. I used to spend the holidays with them, and I saw them. We had lunch, or I guess dinner, on the 1st of the year, and they were kind enough to sort of give me my own booth, if you will, and I had a guitar up there on the wall, or I have a guitar up on the wall. And, when I lived in Hollywood, that was where you could find me, be there drinking a lot of whiskey, being a jerk.
So people now, what's the tourist situation like? It's literally like, hey, we're in town. Oh, you got to stop by. And I didn't know that. So pie is the thing out there. In the Rainbow Bar and Grill, it's known for.
Oh yeah, pie. I mean, the Magliaris are old Italian family, so it's
gotcha.
It's basically what they're best known for is Italian food, i.e. pizza, but then also respectfully, I think most of the kitchen staff is Hispanic, and so there's a ton of Mexican food that's like out of this world.
Wow.
And so but everybody's got their go-to at the Rainbow. Like I mentioned, Jacob from Adler and Neon Coven, all that. His thing is the grilled chicken Caesar salad, or some salad like that. And then my thing used to be the same thing, but shrimp, but like the Asian shrimp salad. And
I like shrimp.
Yeah, so do I. And everybody's got their go-to menu item, and it's obviously been a minute since I've been there, other than when I was in town for work on the 1st of the year. But before I moved, I mean, I was there, 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Now, but now here's the thing. So it's like you got various different rock guys that'll come in, or musicians. You get musicians that come in here all the time. And then, so what happens? It's like you could just be hanging out there, and then all of a sudden some tourists come in, and they're like, they come up to you, or they come up to someone they recognize, and they're just bothering you while you're trying to eat or whatever.
It wasn't a lot. I didn't ever witness a lot of bothering. However, there's a table in the corner that they kind of affectionately refer to as the slash table, or the Nikki Six table, depending who's around. But there's a corner table. If you've ever been to the Rainbow, it's in the you walk in far left corner. And there's a fire exit around the opposite of that in the corner, which used to be the original entrance back when it was the original restaurant name, which is escaping me, but it was I want to say Joe DiMaggio owned it, but I'm getting way off topic. But if you look carefully, some of the weird little decor inside the Rainbow still has the original Rainbow restaurant title, which of course is escaping me. And so if somebody famous comes in, they'll usually bring them in that way, or more importantly, walk them out that way. So that way they're not getting, like, I've been there when Lady Gaga was in there. I've been in there when like Tom Morello and people like that are in there, and they'll kind of dip in through that way. But you know, there's so many people that are such regulars there. Like for a while, Dave Navarro was in there all the time, or whoever, and you just don't give a shit. You're like, I'm, some F level musician or whatever. And it gets to the point there'd be a line on a Friday night and I would just walk up and they'd be like, come on, and I just walk in and nobody bother me, or half the time they'd be like, hey, you're that guy, hoping that they could decipher what band I was in, like, oh, I love Avenged Sevenfold, man. I love your band. I'd be like, right on, bro. Right on.
Wait, yeah. So then what about like Lemmy sitting in the corner, drinking scotch and Coke, playing his video machine? Yeah. What happens when? So I mean, if that's his regular hangout and people know to find him there, you
leave him alone, because he wouldn't give you. Lemmy was a very kind man, but he just If he was playing his machine, he would, you'd be like, hey man, and he'd be like, yeah, hang on, and then he would, when he was ready, he'd give you a few minutes of his time or whatever. But I think the kind of general the unspoken rule was that unless you were like a tourist visiting, like you'd go in there and you'd see Lem, he'd be sitting there, and it just was another,
leave him alone. He's just a part of the scenery.
Exactly. He's doing his thing, like it, but of course every time there'd be somebody would come up and he would, I never saw him be rude or anything, but he wasn't going to be like, oh, hey, hang on, let me stop eating and put this down for your selfie.
Fuck.
Yeah, but he was always, he seemed like he was always cool. He was, the few interactions I ever had with him, he was always very kind to me. He beat my ass at pool once in San Diego. We did the shows with Charlie and the Valentine Killers and Headcat. Yeah. And after the gig, we were shooting pool, and he was like, "You want to shoot?" I remember what he said. Want to play pool? And I was like, "Yes, I do." Lemmy from Motorhead.
Wow.
And he just beat me mercilessly, and I was like, "All right, well, at least I got that story." And and he was a staple there. So it just, unless you were visiting from out of town, you just knew he was going to be there unless they were on tour.
Right. That documentary from 2010, I think it was just called Lemmy or something.
Yeah. 51% son of a bitch, 49% motherfucker. Yeah.
No, there's another one, I think, just called Lemmy. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. That's the subtext.
Oh, that's the subtext. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
The guy that directed that, whose name is escaping me, is an acquaintance. He also directed the Damned documentary, Don't You Wish That We Were Dead?
Haven't seen that yet. Really, really want to see that.
Worth your time.
I definitely will be checking it out. But that Lemmy documentary I loved it because it was just such a, and I have Ace of Spades or whatever on. I'm not a big Motorhead guy, not because I don't like him or anything. I just a blind spot for me.
Sure.
But it was I loved watching it. I loved it was even if you're not a Motorhead fan, or even if you don't know who Motorhead is, it's a wonderful, wonderful character piece about a musician, and you come to it from that story, and then the story with his son and connecting with his son, and like. It's really sweet and wonderful,
really, really great rockumentary. Just like you said, even if you're not a fan of the band, it's still worth watching.
Yeah, totally. And then the other thing, so that was a very interesting interaction with Danzig. I would have done the same thing with the napkin. I would have framed it. I don't know if you know the ranch story, but if you don't, I'm not gonna. It's redundant. We're not going to talk about it now, but go seek out the ranch story on my channel. I'll send you a link if you have
me the link. I don't know. I think
you will really appreciate my ranch story. I'm not going to say anything more about it than that. The ranch story. We'll talk about it another time. So that's fascinating though. And then what? So have you ever like crossed paths with Danzig other than that, or was that mostly just that the?
Oh yeah. I've got probably some of the Danzig stories I wouldn't do on like public kind of story.
Of course. But, of course.
You
just would see him at random places.
I would see him at the Rainbow. I would see him at the Rainbow all the time. And he had come to see me with Pussycat at least 2 or 3 times.
Wow.
And I would know that because the owner, the family that I mentioned, the Magliaris, Amy and Mike, they own the Rainbow, but they also own the whiskey. And so
Oh,
Amy,
I did
yeah,
not know that.
same family. And so Amy would be like, "Oh, did you see Glenn?" And I'm like, "Glenn who?" And she's like, "Danzig. He had a table. He's watching your show." Like,
Wow.
no, I was on stage, going through the motions. But I had a really cool. I don't want to delve into it too much, but I was at the what's the big venue in New York when the Misfits played?
Irving
Springsteen.
Plaza.
No. The big.
Max's not Max's
No.
Kansas City.
No. The arena.
Webster Hall.
No, it's an arena.
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden. Thank you.
MSG.
Sorry.
Yeah.
MSG. I was at the MSG show and I was there as a guest.
Wait,
And
you were
so-
there in 2019?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
all right. Oh, yeah, I was at that show too.
Yeah, great show.
Great
and so,
show.
I don't want to throw anyone under the bus.
Okay,
but,
I understand. No worries.
But I had a laminate, so I could just kind of go wherever I wanted.
Right.
And their tour manager, and then also Glenn's current, or at least at the time, security guard is a friend of mine, Eddie. Sorry, throw Eddie under the bus. And so like I said, I know, it's weird telling these stories because I don't want to sound like I'm name dropping, but like I know Doyle. He was like, "Yeah, come on, let's go get a fuck talk." And so I'm back there, and somehow I ended up in GD's dressing room, and his sister came in, and they were having like this really like intense conversation about like someone in their family had just passed, and then him talking about the show and how important that show, that fact that he played Madison Square Garden, and I'm a fly on the wall. And I just remember being like, this is like, as a fan, like I said, fan first, I was like, this is a big deal. And it was such a moment. And I don't like doing fanboy stuff, and I didn't. But where I'm going with this is when he left and we all cleared out, because I was hanging out with AC, who I've known for forever, and the tour manager, and this guy and that guy, and saying bye to Doyle and everybody else. And I got to finally meet Franche Coma in person. And
Frank.
Frank. And I'll come back to that because he and I, we talk, and he's such a sweet man.
Oh, he's such a character. I was just on the phone with him the other day.
Oh, right on. I'm hesitant to like text him, but like, I'm like, start a cage, bro. But when my point is when Glenn left, I ripped the thing off the door. It said Glenn Danzig dressing room from Madison Square Garden. I have.
Yes.
And so, and I thought about like putting it in a shadow box with the laminate, but I was like, is it like, am I getting too nerdy? But like, even like Zing knows, he's taken me all around Lodi before. It's like, I'm a fucking fan, I love that stuff.
Yep.
So it was, that's what it was. Somebody just, And so,
that's well known now. Everybody knows that stuff.
Yeah. But that was going on real time. And I was literally, 6 feet from him and his, I think, sister, somebody in the immediate family, and just minding my own business. Like, we're talking and other people are talking, and then you can hear this conversation going on that's so heavy, it's overtaking our conversation. And, you're respectful, but I wasn't going to like run out of, like, I'm not supposed to hear this. So I just kind of on. Oh,
pretend to be the furniture and just
pretend to be the furniture.
I'm not supposed to be here, but I also am not going to close my ears and draw attention to myself. I'm just going to pretend like I can't hear anything.
Exactly. And he's a human being. You're a human being. I'm a human being.
Right.
It was one of those moments, but it was interesting as a fan to be a fly on the wall for that moment, and something that arguably is my favorite show of all time because of that. Probably that, not that moment, but that interaction. Being backstage. And then I took Ricky to see them again in Philly, and Ricky Rackman, and we went and we were backstage, and Ricky is arguably my closest friend in the world. Like, I walked him down the aisle at his wedding 3 months ago. Okay. And so, or it was one of 3 people. And so he was like, he functions differently than maybe I do. And he was like, I want to meet Glenn. I want to say hi to Glenn. And I was just like, and I want a pony. Like, okay. And so I texted Eddie, the guy was working security for Glenn. And I was like, Rackman hasn't seen GD since 95, since like a Headbangers Ball episode or something. And he would really love to just say hi. And he was like, nobody's coming back here. And I was like, okay. And then Ricky was like, kind of like, like, fuck, because we were in Doyle's dressing room, or at least outside, adjacent, whatever. And it's an arena, so it's like it's like a sporting event. So there's all these dressing rooms and big offices and space. And I was like, well, let me, I'll ask him again, I guess, later. And so Eddie comes out and he goes, you, and you, as who is now Ricky's wife, Leah, and he goes, you can come back. And I was like, I don't want to go. I was like, it's too weird for me. I was like, I don't want to do it. But when Eddie walked Ricky into the dressing room, it was so many people. It was like Alex Skolnick from Testament, all these, like, it was a who's fucking who at every show. Because I was around for 3 of these shows, and it was constantly a who's who. And that room got real quiet when Ricky and GD had this little moment. And
wow.
And I was and I'm throwing Ricky under the bus on that because he talked about it in a podcast at some point, and he was like, he basically omitted me from the story. And I was like, that happened because I pried Eddie into going back in there to be like, look, Rackman's here, he just wants to say hi. So it was kind of cool to facilitate that for my friend rather than who they are. But just the bands that I've been in and stuff like that's afforded me opportunities to. I've been on stage with Doyle a bunch of times. I did a convention where we had a jam band thing, a horror convention called Rock and Shock, and we would have Doyle be on this festival, and then I would be like, "Hey, do you want to do some songs?" And he was like, "All right, buddy," and jump up and do some Misfit songs. I got to jam with John Christ once.
That's cool.
So stuff like that is again like fanboy, where I go, those are those little moments that are way cooler than, of course, some of the obvious stuff.
So so hold on. So all right, so they reunited for the first time.
Yeah, and it was brief. It was brief. Yeah.
Brief. But it's so interesting because like Ricky Rack, because of those episodes and because of YouTube, that those two are sort of synonymous, or those interactions are synonymous. When people think of Headbangers Ball, like maybe in the top 5 things, like one of them is going to be Glenn Danzig.
Throw him in the fire.
Right. And you could always tell that it was like, that it was clearly playful. Yeah, it was totally like a playful thing. And you can tell. Sorry, what were you
I was just saying, you know about it, but the Bordello Danzig acoustic thing.
Right. He would play his shows. Yes.
Yeah, they already had a history before Ricky was a rapport before Ricky even was even on Headbangers Ball. So
right. So it's like you almost got the gist, and I'm just saying this as someone who watched the videos. I don't actually know. You almost get the gist that it's just kind of like Ricky knew what he was going to do once the camera was rolling. Yes. He knew he was gonna, do these, say these things and whatnot, and get Glenn riled up, or get Glenn. Yeah. And Glenn would always have this cheese eating grin of like, watch it, Ricky. Watch it, Ricky. And it was just so funny to watch the two of them go back and forth. But that's really cool, man. And yeah, that show, that Madison Square Garden show, we talk about it all the time on the channel, and it was like that was such a big show. I decided, I was like, I don't know if I'll ever see them live again. I don't know if I have to, because that show was so perfect. Like, I just don't.
I kind of feel
the Damned opened up. Like what else do you want? Like what else? It's at Halloween, hometown show, Madison Square Garden. And by the way, since you brought it up, it's funny that you brought up Frank. So Frank will be coming on the show.
Awesome.
He's coming in, I think he's going to be coming in June-ish. That's the plan. But what's funny is at that show, I was thinking about all the different lineups of bands that were at that Madison Square Garden show. You had 3/4 of the Static Age lineup there.
Yep.
You had 3/4 of Sam Hain were there, because Pete Damian Marshall, who played guitar, he was also there in the crowd. You had 3/4 of the Misfits 95 lineup, because Chud was up in the skybox as somebody's guest. Yes, he was also there. You had Uncle Dez was there. So you had, and I think the Goat, Chupacabra, whatever.
Yeah, Eric.
Eric.
Yeah.
He was they were also there. So you had the Jerry Fitz era there. There were so many different lineups of that band or those house. Incarnations. Yes, all in the house. I'm not sure who else from Danzig. I don't know if Johnny Kelly was there or Tommy Victor. I think one of those guys were there. Maybe both of them were there.
I think Tommy might have been there.
So then you have 3/4 of Danzig was there.
Zing was absolutely there.
I know Zing was there. So it's like, it's just funny. Sal B was there. It's just that everybody was at that show. No, I do not think Robo was not there.
No.
Robo was not there. That would have been really cool, though. There was a moment in time when you think about all the kooky, crazy lineups of the Misfits. You had the Earth AD lineup minus Glenn Danzig plus Dez from
Dez.
Black Flag.
Yeah. Which makes sense in a sense, you know.
Right, because it's like half Black Flag, it's Misfits flag.
Yeah.
And
Flag
fits. There was a brief moment where, so before that all happened, though, after they lost those dudes, they were trying to put together, and this only recently came to light for me. They were trying to put together Joey before Joey hurt himself and you know, he broke his hip and whatnot.
Yeah.
That it would have been Joey and Marky and Doyle and Jerry formed this sort of hybrid version of the Misfits. That was the plan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it did not. Yeah, Joey was going to, and he had, you know, Joey had hopped on stage and done some stuff because Joey and Jerry had gotten tight, despite the fact that those two had actually gone all the way back to like 78 or whatever. But they had gotten tight again in the 90s. There was like that whole resurgence and whatnot. And Coney Island
it was
High.
Around the box set era, right? Or around that.
Yeah. Like the late 90s, Coney Island High was like a big venue. I was before my time, but that was like a big venue. I was lucky enough. I started to go to CBGB's in the last 3 years of its existence. That was when I was in high school. And so I got to see I saw TSOL there. I saw the Bad Brains there.
My friends supporting the Dead Kennedys there.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, it was such a cool place, man.
Yeah.
It was such a cool place. Like the fact that like, it's so weird to think that it's gone now and that like how like legendary that place is, you know? But yeah, I don't know where we were going with all that, but yeah, just that stuff is so surreal when you get to be sort of backstage or behind the scenes. It's like, yeah, you don't even want to talk. You don't want to, it's not even like you need to interact or anything. It's just that you're like witnessing it, or you're seeing what happens behind the scenes and you're speechless and you just don't say anything. And you just kind of like, you soak it all in. It's really friggin' cool.
Yeah. It's definitely the coolest backstage experience I've ever had that it didn't involve me. You know what I mean? Nobody knew I was there. I wasn't there as anybody. I was just there as a friend of somebody in the camp, and ended up, you know, meandering into the situation where I was like, oh, look, that's the singer of not one, not two, but three of my favorite bands of all time.
Right.
You know, and we're all here, you know, hanging out post show. And it was really cool. It was really sort of, maybe not humbling isn't the right term, but it was a really unique, it was special. It was very special. Yeah.
And I love that you're just as geeked out as like, say, you know, I would geeked out too, like that meeting Franche Coma. Cause you know, Frank is a very chill guy. And yet at the same time, he's like, every once in a while, I'm like, oh, that's the guy that fucking played on Static Age, dude. Like that's like the coolest shit ever, you know,
he and I met in the hall outside of GD's room.
Yeah.
And I think AC introduced us, or somebody.
So cool.
Somebody in the camp. And we talked for maybe 2 minutes, and he was very nice, but he didn't know me from a hole in the wall. And I found him maybe that week on Instagram, didn't realize he had one. I added him, and he added me back or whatever. And he wrote me back this thing, and he said, oh my God, when I met you, I thought your name sounded familiar. He goes, I'm a huge LA Guns fan. And
nice.
And I know your name from joining the band, from being like the new guy. And he had this really sweet sentiment. And we went back.
He's very personable. He's a very personable guy.
Well, we ended up getting on the dog, a thing about dogs later on. And so he and I kind of talk a lot about that, or the few times we spoke. But I was like, man, I don't want to be weird, but I was like, I got to say, James Hetfield and you are the reason that I wanted an Explorer for so long. You know, just thank you. You know, you get to a point in a casual conversation where you talk about whatever, but it's okay to throw in by the way, hey, I just want to say I'm a fan and thank you.
Yeah.
And he was just so cool. And eventually he was like, here's my number. Just shoot me a text. And
awesome.
Just a sweet guy. I'm excited to see the show with him on it.
I am gonna. We had a conversation, and I had met him years ago because I had interviewed him many years ago for the project.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen him or spoken to him in years. And then he was there was the Morning Noise reunion thing, and he was there for that.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I had seen him in a long time. But yeah, he he's gonna come on the show, and I'm gonna put him through his paces. He knows it too. He knows
Good.
I'm gonna
You're gonna drill him with every fan.
I'm gonna drill him the way I
question
drill
come up
poor
with.
Mr. Jim. Poor Mr.
Perfect.
Jim. Mr. Jim got brutalized. Frank's gonna get brutalized. He knows it. It's gonna be great. And now that we've heard the Manny tape, I have so many questions to ask him about that. I can ask him in more detail, stuff like that and whatnot. But let's rewind it for a second. So first of all, the project that you did with Greg, is that music available anywhere? Did that ever come out? Whatever happened with that?
Yeah, Dwayne put out some of that music. Dwayne Peters, DP and the Great Unwashed.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there. I'm not on the album. I think I might be on one song, but I can't confirm because I have no idea. It's been so long. I don't remember what we recorded or what was just like sort of us bootlegging ourselves for the sake of remembering stuff. But we did do a television performance that's on YouTube for Fuel or Fuse. I can't remember one or the other.
Fuse TV.
Yeah, Fuse TV. And it was like Steve Jones was the guest. And then we played. I think I might have thrown the link in one of your episodes, but it's just Dwayne and me and Greg.
Can you resend that to me? Resend it to me? I have to send me that link after the show.
It's just totally Tom Waits. It's a guy on a piano, me strumming an acoustic, and Dwayne kind of, if you know Dwayne's voice, listen up, this is a fucking deal, motherfucker. It's him doing his best Tom Waits. So he's like, I got a boot with no shoe, waxing poetic. And it was a cool thing. I'm happy that in hindsight that I was able to be a part of so many projects with Dwayne, even though he's completely off his rocker. He's just
a handful.
I ceased communicating with him because he became so volatile is the easiest way to explain it. But looking back, those Bombs records are great. And I was just happy to be a part of that for a few minutes.
Sure. And I mean, like friggin', and I got to tell you, Chip did a great, we talked about this.
In
the chat. Big fan of the Trigger complex.
Yeah.
Just love it.
And then Chip and the guys from the Bombs minus Dwayne started a project called the UX Bombs. And they put out a record, and I'm one of the guests on the album.
When did that come out? When
it dropped right at the top of the pandemic, so nobody heard about it because it just got swept by the wayside. But it's called West World Crisis, maybe.
Okay,
something like that. It's actually, if you're a US Bombs fan, it's this guy Jesse who sings for a band called the Agrolites. He's singing.
I know the Agrolites, sure.
Yeah, great band. He's doing sort of his version of street punk, so it's a little more it's a little more intelligible than maybe Dwayne, but it still sounds like Bombs, kind of street punky.
That's cool. That's cool. And then tell me about the synth band, the synth project.
Neon Coven. Oh man, I love
Neon Coven.
Project.
It's a cool name too.
Thanks.
What made you think of that name? Where's the name come from?
I think my singer came up with that.
The Neon Coven.
I think it was meant to sound like it's a juxtaposition, or
a great juxtaposition.
Like neon, but then we're Coven.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it.
That sort of, there's some roots at the Rainbow in that the band sort of history. It's basically a studio project, to hit it on the the thing on the head. We were doing one of those 80s hair metal themed cruises that we all do periodically, and Jacob, the main guy in the band, if you will.
Oh no, who froze? Did I freeze? Shit.
If ever, Mick Mars' solo album. That's Mick, the guitar player from Motley.
Right, Mick Mars. I know him. I think I froze. Can you rewind what you said 2 seconds?
I
froze on you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So Jacob is known for singing for Steven Adler, and then also singing for the unreleased album from Mick Mars and co-writing all that. But Jacob's also really, really highly sought after and respected, big name ghost writer for a lot of like sort of household names.
Interesting.
And Jacob and I have been friends for ages, and we were on this cruise, and he, myself, and our singer Anthony, who at the time was working for LA Guns before I was in the band, and maybe somebody else, and one of my friend April in production of this cruise, she goes, "Oh, you guys are like the young handsome boy band guys on the boat," because it was like all the guys that at the time I was probably like 30, and so it was all the young guys and all these sort of legacy acts where everybody's 45 to 55 or whatever,
Right.
older.
Right.
So, and so we said, that's funny, ha ha ha. And then it kept becoming a joke that kept coming up, like, oh, there's my boy band. And we said, well, you know what, let's take the task to challenge or whatever. And we met at the Rainbow and we said, we should do some music. We're all, professionals and creative, and we each have our own little specific thing that we're good at. And Anthony brought in our drummer, Kyle, who he's played with a bunch of people, filled in for Berlin and a couple other bands and stuff, and fantastic session drummer and whatnot. And we came up with this EP, and because of Jacob's ability to produce and create and do stuff like that for what he does his day job, we cranked out this EP. A label that he works with put it out, and it got some a sizable amount of terrestrial radio play.
Really?
A song called Bleeding Love, because of his sort of ins with the industry, if you will. Yeah. And so we took a few shortcuts, or I don't know how else to word it. And so then we got some, there was a press, a little bit of hype. So we did like a show or two, and then everyone went back to their respect. I went back on tour, and then we circled back a year later. We put another EP, and then right before the pandemic hit, we started working on what became our debut full length, Future Postponed, which was like the first album I've contributed lyrics to in probably 15 or 20, a lifetime. And that came out, and same thing. It got some songs got some radio play. I think the biggest, biggest song on the record is sort of the heavier one. It's called Dead to Me, very sort of like Rob Zombie kind of sounding, which is my track, or one of my 3 songs on the record. And it's just a cool studio project that I like. It's sort of somewhere between Depeche Mode, Nine Inch Nails, Typo Negative, and Rob Zombie. It's like that kind of thing. And then we put out a single. We did a cover of oh shit, what's his name? The singer of Bauhaus, not David J. Peter Murphy.
Peter Murphy.
We did Peter Murphy's "Cuts You Up" in the fall, and put that out as a digital single. So we just throw stuff out there, and they did a show a couple weeks ago without me in Hollywood at some goth thing, and I wasn't going to travel all that way to play for 30 minutes for free, and it's just too much work. And so
I get it.
We've all, except for the singer, we've all subbed out at one point anyhow, because again, it's a studio project. So yeah, but if anyone's into that kind of stuff that I described, check out Neon Coven, the Future Postponed album.
I definitely want to check that out. I have, it's like that. It's so interesting because, like, when I was younger, I was definitely like really into punk. And then as I've gotten older, my taste has sort of expanded. Really started with Christian Death, stuff like that, and slowly like expanded into sort of like I don't know what you would call it, like not just post-punk, but also goth and more synth. It's gotten more synthy, my tastes. I used to detest it. I used to, especially as like coming from like a more of a rock, punk, whatever background. And then like as I've grown older, I've started to really just sort of I've gotten really into it. I really got into sort of, I know this sounds really weird, but like that, that whole, it's on the West Coast. I got very much to, and pertaining to our conversation before about this is where I'm appreciative of Spotify, because I never would have like discovered it if it wasn't for Spotify. Spotify's algorithm showed me these bands. And then when these bands started to come to town, I would then go see them live, because Spotify would let me know that they were in town. You go to the show. Yeah. You listen to the music for nothing. So you buy the record at the merch booth, you buy the fucking t-shirt, and you meet the band because they're like relatively accessible and very small or whatever. And I have seen so much music. The sort of before it all went under, I guess it's like the garage rock revival that was sort of happening out there. And you had all the Burger Tapes bands before Burger went under. I still love a lot of that music. Some of it, one of my favorite bands was destroyed by that scandal and no longer exists. I don't know if you're familiar with No Bunny.
I know. Yeah, I know. I definitely have heard them, and I know the name. Yeah.
Big No Bunny fan. Saw every show, every time that Justin would come before that whole thing happened. Every time he would come to New York, I was his number one fan. Loved those shows. Were like, it was like church. It was like rock and roll church for me. and Tijuana Panthers, The Garden,
Yeah.
just all those bands, man. Friggin' the Frights,
Yeah.
Fiddlar's a part of that crew.
Yep.
Like all that music, Shannon and the Clams. Like I started to get turned on to all that stuff. The Mummies. Well, the Mummies are way older, but
yeah. Oh, I love the Mummies.
but the Mummies rule. The Mummies were going to Spain and they stopped to play. They were playing two surprise shows at somewhere in Brooklyn. Maybe it was it wasn't the King's Theater. That's a really prestigious place. Where were they playing? They were playing somewhere in Brooklyn. And I went down, like, I literally found out about it in like 12 hours, went down there, got in, and who's there but the fucking I had seen Iggy Pop at the Capitol Theater and with the guy from the Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh yeah, Josh. Yeah.
Right, during post-pop depression, that album.
Yeah.
And the bass player was at the Mummy show, just in the audience. And I was like, dude, you played with Iggy Pop. He was like, whoa, how did you know that? I was like, I saw you guys. And he was the coolest motherfucker. We were just talking and chatting. He's a friend of Josh's, and that's how he got that gig.
Yeah.
But it was just what a great show. And what kills me is that all that, you had all the Burgaroos or whatever the hell they were called, the Beach Goth, all that stuff. John Waters emceeing. All of that stuff was all happening on the West Coast, and I was on the East Coast, and it was just like could never participate and go. But anytime those bands would come east, I was always at those shows, and just such a vibrant scene that was rocked by terrible things. And it makes me sad, man. And it was like, I kind of consider one of those things is like, it's weird. 2020 was such a transformative year for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And I feel like that whole scene died not because of the pandemic, because of what had happened. And, but it's like all that stuff is gone now. And it's just so, I don't know. It's just really interesting to me because like it was, I don't know, just 2020 was really like sort of like the end of an era in a lot of ways, in that kind of way.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I'm sure in many sorts of ways, but yeah, like there's just there was a lot of really, really cool music coming out. Like this band, The Garden, it's just two twin brothers, and they're like rap. They like do rap. They just play drums and bass.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I got thrashed in their crowd, in their pit. I was the oldest person there. Everybody was like 16, and I was like in my 30s. And like, I was just like, and I was with my friend who's in his 60s, and he comes to me and asks me what's all the cool shows. And he had been around, he had shot dope with Johnny Thunders and stuff, and like was around back then. Cool. But he just loves going to live music. So he would say, hey, what's going on? And we go, oh, let's go see Fishbone. Oh, let's go see King Kong and the Barbecue Show. Let's go see, whatever was playing. And that was one of those that was one of those crazy shows. Got totally thrashed. Realized that I was not young anymore, being there and seeing kids who were actually young, and then just getting destroyed by the ferocity of the crowd, the energy, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's when your age starts to catch up with you, at least a little bit.
Yeah, when your age starts, yes, that's the best way to put it. Are you familiar at all with King Kong and the Barbecue Show or any of those other bands, that kind of stuff, like Garage Buzz?
Some of them I know by name. Some of them I know I've seen. Like I'd end up at like some show like that at like
right,
like the Satellite or some weird little like kind of indie art house venue in LA or whatever. But I didn't really get into a whole lot of that stuff, to be honest. But
you must check out. I mentioned this the other night. This is we're already buried in the album anyway, so I'll just say it. Friggin' Jay Retard, dude. I don't know if you're a fan of Jay Retard. You must check him out. Phenomenal, just friggin' really, really great. Really, truly great. You mentioned that you were a TSOL fan though before.
Oh God, yeah, huge TSOL.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and it's rare. You don't usually come across people that are into TSOL in that kind of way. Like they're just always sort of one of those. I don't know. I feel like they're just one of those bands. Like, yeah, I know Code Blue. It's awesome, but to like really like be into the band or like familiar at least with some of their work.
Yeah, Jack was so cool to me when I was a young punk kid, and he totally did not need to be, even before I was even in a band. And I know King Khan.
Yeah.
And okay, and just so cool, like, and always very kind. And there's a TSOL story I have that, like, I probably shouldn't tell, but
I feel like that's every TSOL story.
well, yeah, well, it like a lot of things, there's more stories in my life that never came to fruition than probably ones that did, but that's welcome to the music industry, or the arts, I should say.
Right.
But TSOL's manager and Dead Kennedys and a couple other bands is a guy named Landon, and I've known Landon for like 20 years. And Landon Gale, right under the bus, right? And so Landon called me. Oh, it was right when I joined LA Guns. It would have been roughly 4 years ago. And he was like, "What are you doing the weekend of September 15th?" And I was like, "Nothing, just about 2 weeks after home from a tour." "Why?" And he goes, "Are you available to fill in for one of my bands?" And I said, "Which band?" And so I'll let you do the math. But
Wow.
long story short, they had some shows with Dead Kennedys that they couldn't dip out of. And I think Mike had something going on where he couldn't make it. And they were
He
already,
lives in Vegas, right?
I think, I'm not really
Or,
sure.
I don't know if he was living in Vegas at
No,
that time, but I know he does now.
I know Mike's in Vegas.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, like, it's just such not my story to tell, but it doesn't matter now. The shows ended up not even, no, the shows happened. He ended up not doing, like, I think he had like a wedding or a funeral or a family thing, and he was supposed to do. And it was one of those things where it was like, I'm unavailable, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And there was about 10 days where I was rapidly learning, the 60-minute set, which of course like
Yeah.
30 songs.
Yeah.
And then Landon got back to me. He was like, "Oh, no, it's all good. We don't need you." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Thanks for the update."
Oh, cool. I just like spent all this time learning songs, but
Yeah, well, then it
good
became
songs
the
to
thing where
know.
I was like, "Yeah, of course." Well, some of that stuff is for punk rock is like really fucking technical, but
Yeah.
and up there tempo wise. But I've never told that story publicly before, so if anybody wants to give me a hard time about it, we'll know where it came from. But it never happened. But I was just humbled that my buddy thought of me, and that because it had to go. I remember he was sending me screen captures from Jack. He was like, "Who is it? Like, who'd you call? Who?" And he goes, "This, him, the guy." And he was like, "Oh yeah, all right, fine." And it's Jack. And I just was like, "Fuck yeah!" And I started learning stuff that they don't even play. Just like, I wanted to show up,
Right.
because whenever I audition for anybody, which is rare, I always try to show up and ace the audition, right? And if
Yeah.
you give me 8 songs to learn, I'm going to learn 14. And so I was like, I'm going to learn this deep cut that I know they're not going to put. Somebody, what is it? Somebody Wants to Die, or whatever that unreleased song is, or whatever,
Oh, yes, I know what you're referring to. That's not the
Yeah,
title, but Die
no,
is in
but
it.
yeah,
Yes, I know
whatever,
what you're
from that
referring to.
early demo era.
Yes, yes.
Just to be a jerk, and show up, be like, "Well, I know it. Do you know it?" But oh yeah, huge TSOL fan. It's not even enough about me, but yeah, I got into them in middle school. It was one of those bands that somehow I discovered, maybe through Punkorama, but I don't think that was it. I think that was just occurring at the same time. And I just remember buying the Dance With Me record, which is still one of my favorite records of all time. Actually, that record and the talking about Frontier Records earlier, the Adolescence Blue album.
Right, the Blue album, yes.
Those 2 records are how I became super close with Rackman at first, because I met him through my singer in Pussycat, Tame Me Down, because they used to have that club Cat House in the 80s. And so Ricky was just always around when I was in that band. And maybe a couple years, I knew him for 2 years. So maybe like 2013 or so, he was like, we're somewhere where we were forced into some conversation. He's like, "You wouldn't even like the stuff I like." And I was like, "Well, what do you like?" He's like, "You ever heard of TSOL?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, he thought I was going to be like, "Yeah."
So Rackman's of TSOL?
Oh, his favorite band is like the Germs. He's a punk rocker.
That's so
He's
crazy
a punk rocker through and through. And then he was like, "What about the Adolescents?" And I was like, "What about Agent Orange?" And he was like, "Well, what about DI?" And I was like, "Well, what about the Dickies?" And then we just nerded out. We were like, because he is known for hair metal and hard rock and metal.
Right. That's what I always think of it. That's what, yeah.
So we bonded over our love of punk rock. He had a band that maybe, I don't want to announce, but we're resurrecting a project of his from the 90s called Battery Club. And it was like one of the guys from DI. It was John Maurer from Social D on bass. And Ricky was a singer. And so anytime Ricky and I do a jam anywhere, which is frequently, we usually do like Code Blue or Bloodstains from Agent Orange, or, you know, something like, you know, Richard Hung Himself or something like that.
What is it? You said that it was very technical. And what I find interesting is that, yeah, like when I listen in general, I'm so in awe of their musicianship, because those guys are like legitimately, like, I mean, maybe not as much as they used to be, but like they were out of their mind, like, especially at that time. And so it's amazing to think of like how talented and how creative they were musically. And what's interesting about TSOL, and maybe we said this in the last stream, but I'll say it here again for this conversation with TSOL, is that they're this band that, speaking of like of labels and being in boxes and things, here's this band that like is supposed to be just like a political hardcore band, but because of that first EP, right? But the reality is that they're so gothic and death rock, and like all, like, you listen to, forget about Silent Scream, but you listen to Sounds of Laughter or The Triangle.
Or all of the Weathered Statues EP.
Yes, and all
segueing into Beneath the Shadows. You know, I mean, that's it's death rock. You know? Totally
death rock, and they don't want to be called that. They're like, we're not death rock. Fuck you. Like, you know.
And that's my favorite era from the band is that sort of little window of like going from Dance With Me until the resolution of the band, because they alienated their entire audience with that Beneath the Shadows LP, which is unfortunate because I remember getting it as a young man, like literally with a mohawk, 15 years old, like, you know, I only want to hear Charge, Deep GBH and Anger, and getting this record and somehow kind of getting it and being like, oh yes, we're maturing. I get it. And never being bothered by, because all my other friends were like, oh, they put out that stupid fucking synthwave goth record and then they became a hair metal band. We hate that. Good. But I love that record. And then even the Change Today album is so phenomenal. And you said that
they were so tight.
They demoed some of that stuff with Jack.
Okay, so this is what I saw in one of the TSOL groups, that Jack is actually like I think he's like the admin there or something. Yeah. And he made a comment, just an offhand casual comment of something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing. This is not exact. Just want to put that out there. It's something along the lines of, we were doing those songs before we left. And it wasn't just that Jack, everybody's always like, oh, Jack left. It wasn't just Jack, Greg, and Todd left. 3/5 of the band left the band when they dissolved. When they all left the band, that they had already started working on that change, some of that material. Who knows how much? But the idea that they did, and again, this is like going into like the Misfits speculation of like, I wish I could hear this tape or this tape. It's the same thing. Like, I just wish I would love to hear that version of TSOL.
I could totally hear
that material.
I could hear Jack doing a Black Magic, or
he would crush that Black Magic.
You know, there's a couple songs on there that kind of lean more in Jack's direction.
Right. Not to take away from, listen, I like Joe Wood.
I do too. Yeah.
I like that first. Like I said, like that first record. And even again, I love Nothing For You.
Great
which I first heard off of Return of the Living Dead soundtrack. Return of the
Living Dead. Yeah. The best soundtrack of all time.
The best soundtrack of all time. And I'll tell you something. I've tried listening to other like Jet Blackberry's songs. I've tried listening to the Tall Boys and stuff. And it's just like, for some reason, it's just those tracks that really sort of do it for me. Like,
well, I totally agree. I'm looking at the original day bill for it right there, by the way, for Return of the Living Dead.
That's awesome.
I went to the 20th anniversary in 2005 at the Egyptian, and they had, you're reading that.
Yes.
And I see the notifications.
Yeah.
And I went to the screening, and it was all the cast and all the crew. And what I didn't know, and I don't know how much this is known now, is Dinah Cancer, the singer of 45 Grave, was the artist who hand-picked all the songs.
That I did not know. I never knew that. Really?
She was on this dais with...
That makes sense.
With everybody, and talking about how, is it Enigma, I think, was the record label?
Yes. because
And
that was the Enigma was TSOL's record label.
yeah, and for I think Sleep and Safety, the 145 Grave
Right.
album is on there. And of course I'm drawing a blank on his name. Paul Rossler,
Yeah,
who
Kira's
was
brother.
Kira's brother.
Yeah.
He's the guy that produced that UX Bombs record I played on, and I'm sitting
Oh,
there being
really?
like, "You're Paul Rossler. You were
That's
in the
awesome.
Screamers and 45
Yeah.
Grave, man." I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it. But I was, like, oh, that's
Oh no, did I freeze? Who froze? Shit, hate it when this happens. Hold on,
all right.
we just froze. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. You were saying you were freaking out about Paul Rossler.
Inner monologue was fanboying, but my
Yeah.
external behavior was, normal job. Yeah, let's bang out this session, man. Play some guitar. But so Dinah Cancer, Enigma, and she there's a word I'm reaching for. Hand chose these each artist
Right.
and
She
song.
handpicked the songs. Now, and he also worked with Jack. Paul Rossler worked with Jack on I think Jack and the West Coast Dukes or something. Maybe.
Oh yeah, he had
Joy
that
Killer and
that
Joy
solo
Killer.
project and Joy Killer, and I think he might have done the Trigger Complex, maybe.
Yes, he did. I don't know if he produced it or engineered it or
I think
something.
he engineered.
I think he might have engineered.
Yeah, Robot Kitten Studio, I think is what it's called, and Chip Hanna on drums on both TSOL and the UX Bombs record and US Bombs as well.
It's just but that is a fascinating fact to me, and it makes so much sense. That's how you get the Cramps. You literally have the Cramps, the Damned, and TSOL all in the same.
All these songs that aren't accessible. Like, find that Damned song anywhere else. You
can't.
I spent because that's not Captain Sensible on guitar. It's Roman Jug, I think. It's not. I spent so much because I'm a nerd. I spent so much time. I was like, I want to know who this is in this lineup, because it was at this weird tipping point where Captain was out of the band but was still sort of like in the peripheral. At least the session was.
Okay.
And then same thing with that Cramp song. I think it's like a B-side.
Super obscure,
super rare,
song.
obscure.
Yeah.
That Rocky Erickson song. Actually, there's a Rocky Erickson album right there. And a Tattoo right here if you're a fan.
Nice. Burn the Flames.
Big fan. I got to meet him before he passed. And so that song is at the time was sort of a deep cut, and the version of Nothing for You from TSOL is not the same version that's on the album. It's like an alternate mix.
It's a much different version of the song.
It's way better. It's way better than the album version. Yeah.
And there's also what is it? Something Iranians that plays.
Oh, and it's not on the soundtrack.
And it's not on the soundtrack. And it was like the earliest.
Yes. And there's another band that's not on the soundtrack. Not SSD, but it's another band from Tang. It's another Tang catalog punk. It's some random punk band like the FUs, maybe. It's somebody like that. And I know that because one of my first jobs out of high school before I became a touring musician for about 9 months, I worked at a record label called Tang, and they were a reissue label. We had the Exploited, Stiff Little Fingers, anything UK 82 kind of stuff, Dropkick Murphys. We had all that stuff. And I remember whatever this band was, I think it's the FUs, and just like the Young Iranians or whatever, it was a song in the movie, but not on the soundtrack.
And I'll tell you something, those needle drops are so friggin' iconic, dude. Like,
when
you hear the laugh from Deadbeat Dance, or when you hear when the All Boys, just all of it, man. All of it just is so iconic to me, and so great, and really just absolutely enhances the soundtrack. That, and also obviously Suburbia's soundtrack is phenomenal.
The
Darker My Love, Wash Away.
You can't get that anywhere either.
Well, there is the studio version of Darker My Love, which it's a great version, but I think I prefer the live.
Is it recorded in that era?
No, they recorded that in 2005 with Tiny on drums.
I've known Tiny for forever. I know that version.
Tiny, right?
From that era, I don't think there's a studio recording of that track.
There might be I do know
Or at least
that
not one that's public.
No, there's definitely not one that's public. I do know that they played it live. And you know what was interesting? When they started doing the reunion show, not the reunion shows, the anniversary shows is what I mean. In 2020, I thought that they had never played Glass Streets before live. That when they were opening up with that, and I was like, holy shit, this is super cool. However, I found some video online from '83. They're totally playing Glass Streets. So that was they were doing an instrumental at punk rock shows. They were doing a friggin' keyboard heavy instrumental song just in the middle of their set.
Hardcore shows, yeah.
At hardcore shows. So friggin' badass, dude. And there's a great, I don't know if you've seen this, it's online. They did it for like Gibson or something. It's an acoustic version of Triangle, and they also did Weathered Statues.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with that. The guy that does all the footage, that stuff at the Gibson showroom, and I'm a casual Gibson artist, so it's my some friends of mine, and
nice.
The stuff that they crank out there. They did one with Social Distortion. They did one with
it's a great series
with Kirk Hammett and Dave Mustaine, and they're all so really cool. You know, it's like that nice fine line between like punk rock and hard rock and heavy metal and stuff.
Yeah, and just doing acoustic versions that like you never would imagine the Triangle working as an acoustic song,
but they make it go. And that reunion record, what is it? Is it Disappear? It's got Anti-Cop
Disappear. Yeah, Anti-Cop, Sodomy, Motivate.
Yeah, such a great
Terrible People.
Such a great record.
It is, man.
Bootleg copy of it on vinyl floating around out there, and I'm waiting for one to come up because I'm desperately needing it.
So that was never officially released on vinyl.
Never officially released on vinyl, but somebody in Europe, of course, bootlegged it recently, maybe like 17 or 18. And so they're out there. If anyone's a nerd like I am on Discogs, you'll see one come up every 6 or 8 months. Yeah.
Dude, I love that album. However, if you put a gun to my head and say pick between Divided We Stand and Disappear, I'm gonna go with Divided We Stand, because like that every single song is a banger.
Is Fuck You Tough Guy on that one?
Fuck You Tough Guy is on that one. However, what's on, I think, Disappear and not on Divided We Stand, or at least it was a B-side, 2 B-side. Oh no, Wasted is Wasted on Disappear, I think. I got a guy and I needed a place to be. I met a girl.
I don't know, but the Mike, the Ron Emery, what is it, In My Head song that you like is on Disappear.
Yes, it is. And they also have a B-side that it came out, because that was on, it was on Nitro. They were both on Nitro, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so, Nitro. Offspring, I was sort of around for that because we were all on Warped Tour at the same time. I was a young man.
Wow.
And they had the Damned and TSOL, and basically Offspring said, we're going to sign our 2 favorite bands of all time.
Right, because they did Grave Disorder.
Yep.
Democracy
on vinyl. Great song. What a great riff.
Really great. With the Winston Churchill quote at the beginning. And but they have a song called Sold. TSOL had a song called Sold. It was on a comp called Punkzilla, and that was off of Nitro Records, and that also had Son of Sam on it.
Yes, I have some Son of Sam stories, via Todd Youth. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was, all those bands were on the same comp. It was TSOL, The Damned, and Son of Sam all together on,
just putting all the contemporary death rock on one thing. Probably had an AFI song on there too if they were smart.
I don't know if AFI was signed to a different label, which I think is why he didn't.
They were on Nitro
for that second record.
They were on Nitro for a minute though, but who knows? Yeah.
I said I have always professed this. Like the guy they got for the second album,
Sky.
Is that his name? Scott Thorne. Yeah,
he went by Todd Thorne, or no, excuse me, Ian Thorne, but his real name is Sky, and I've known Sky and I've known each other since we were teenagers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we go way
his vocals are very interesting, and I always said, but I don't know if there was ever plans to do. I mean, there isn't anymore, but at the time when it was still possible, I always kind of thought like instead of like seeking out like different vocalists, I always wanted Steve to do it. Like, why doesn't Steve just friggin' sing? Steve's a great singer.
Steve would have been awesome. That project he had, Black
Black 29. I directed
29,
that
so it's his
video.
ba- No shit.
Yeah. So have you seen the video for Sweet Nothing? It's in black and white.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's been a few years now.
Okay, so I directed their music video, and I just directed their new music video with Yerky. I think I can publicly say this now because Steve was on the show. It's Yergy, Tommy from Prong, from Danzig, and Johnny Kelly.
Okay.
And Dano, and they're doing a cover. I think the cover has not been revealed yet, but those guys are on the video, and that video is that's actually why Steve was calling me just now. That video is due to be out at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, that
Black
record,
29. Friggin'
that record
great,
is
dude.
great. I can't remember who sent me that, but I love it. And you know, here's what I will say. At one point, and I'm sure Steve will confirm this. If you ask, at one point, he and Todd and Sky, aka Ian Thorne, were talking about doing a third Son of Sam album. I don't know if
so he was still involved at that point. He was still involved.
And Sky, I know him as Sky. Ian Thorne and Todd and I met at the Burgundy Room in Hollywood and sat down because it was. I think I was in Pussycat already, but it wasn't much longer after I did my tenure with Murphy's Law. And Todd wanted a second guitar player in the band, and he was basically saying, and he sent me 2 songs. I have no idea where those songs are or what, because I probably still had a flip phone. This was probably like 2009 or 2010 or 11. But at some point, I can absolutely confirm that there were songs that Todd had written that were intended for a third Son of Sam record with the same singer from the second one. And I believe that Zing was going to play bass, at least on the album. So
Gotcha.
it was talked about. Yeah. And then Todd passed away. Everyone got busy, and then Todd passed away, and, you know, things disappear like that. But it definitely was a conversation had.
So there was, I didn't know that Sky was still involved, or at least was in talks for a third one as well. I loved the idea. I love the concept. I love the project. A big fan of that the first batch of songs, particularly. I really key in on. And
what a great
shame
sort of
that we didn't get a third one
between Sam Hain and AFI kind of thing. Hey, I got a question for you. I need to run to the bathroom. You want me to?
Yeah,
pee?
go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you want me to wrap
go
it up?
Ahead. Go ahead. I fill in dead air. This happens all the time. Yes. Ace is taking a quick bathroom break. Poor Ace. He's not accustomed to the long broadcast. Boy, we've been going for a long ass time. I actually have to wake up in the morning. Crap. But it's so effortless and easy to talk to Ace. He's such an awesome guy with great stories, and very effortless and easy to talk to. So that's what happens. You blink your eyes, and it's suddenly 2 hours and 2.5 hours have gone by. We'll definitely have to have we'll have him back at another point in time. I see a comment here. Do you remember when Tang's Records store in PB San Diego had hundreds of vinyls of Misfits Beware under the record bin? Don't know if they were definitely bootlegs, Mark. Probably bootlegs. I know, Rue. It's just so effortless sometimes. These shows. Tomorrow night we're doing Batman. The big Batman show is happening. I have a whole crew. People will probably be popping in and popping out, weighing in on Batman. So make sure to check in to hear. I've seen it now, finally, the new Batman film. I have a lot of thoughts about the new Batman movie. I'm going to save it all for tomorrow night. So make sure you check in. If you have not done so, if it's your first time joining us, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Clock is
Get rid of some fluids.
No, I want to apologize because I like totally lost track of the time, which is what happens with these shows. We've been going for literally 2.5 hours. And you were, again, this is the talking, it never ends. I've learned to be a camel on this show. I've learned to just hold my water in these situations. We once did a show that was 5 hours and 12 minutes, I think, is the record on
God.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's
I guess if you had somebody, somebody really interesting on, I could see how it would go
oh,
down.
I was just
I
no,
don't
I
have
was
any. I don't have anywhere to be, so I don't give a shit. I'll talk all night. But I was
no, I
definitely.
appreciate it. I
We got into
appreciate it.
TSOL, and I was like,
Yes.
PSOL. Oh, I gotta
PSOL?
go.
No.
I
This is
gotta.
really no,
I
sorry, go
gotta.
ahead.
I got a good. I was just thinking about Sam Hain and Son of Sam and all that.
Please, go ahead.
So, like a lot of these, there's like a weird fine line. Again, talking about the difference between being a fan first and then having my career in said industry, where you're like, how do you casually address how do you casually address people that you're friends with that are maybe like somebody of note,
Right.
and it's probably been about 7 or 8 years, maybe longer, maybe like 2013 or 14. But like I got to be buddies with London, like just a super sweet guy.
London.
And we were swapping sort of mutual appreciation kind of thing. And I had met him a few times, and I was like, hey, I gotta tell you something funny. I was like, because I actually have 2 Sam Hain tattoos. But I was like, I got one of the little like November Coming Fire guys in here.
Nice.
Just sort of
the little
wedged.
skeleton guys.
Yeah, just some filler.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I think that's me. And I was like, right on. We laughed. And then he goes, I got one for you. And here's something. And maybe I'm telling a story that I shouldn't tell, but he fuck it, right? And so he told me that he auditioned for Faster Pussycat in the 90s.
Oh, cool.
And so he was like, and at the time I was still in Pussycat, and he was like, I auditioned for you guys. They ended up, not me, getting Frankie Banali to fill in, who's no longer.
Quiet Riot, right?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, who's now preceded by Johnny Kelly,
Right.
who's also a really great human being, but and fantastic drummer. But my point is I was like, no shit, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I don't really tell anybody that story, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. And then we started talking because he was in a band called the Huns or Die Huns with Dwayne Peters, and then we were talking about our time working with Dwayne and yada yada and whatnot. And
now he's in a band with Rick Agnew,
yep,
and James McCready.
Yeah, they do a bunch of Christian Death stuff. Yeah,
yes, and I
that
got
singer
their
guy
7-inch.
is great. The
7-inch.
The songs, what is it? 2 songs?
I think they've done 2 7-inches now. I only have one of them, and I was just excited. I've been literally. This project has been in like the James and Rick have been trying to do something together for
a while.
They had the guys, Prayers, the Cholo Goth guys.
Yeah.
They collaborated with Rick and James on something. Their name comes from that song by Christian Death.
Huh.
And yeah, that's where they got the name from, is from Prayers. So they did like I think they did like a whole album's worth of material that never materialized or whatever. Something didn't happen. And then those guys just kept working, trying to figure something out. And then eventually it turned into Symbolism, which makes me happy. I hope they come to the East. I want to see that.
I would love to see it at any point. I think it's a really cool project, and it sort of carries on that tradition of the Roz Williams era Christian Death.
Yes, there was actually, I don't know if you ever saw it. It was on YouTube briefly. I think it was like a very limited edition, sort of like video that they like DVD release that they had put out. It was from 2007 when they had a big, they called themselves Christian Death. No, they called themselves CD 1313.
Yeah, yes, I remember that. And I might have actually seen that in concert and
with Ava O.
Yeah, with Ava O. And I'm so couldn't tell you what I ate for breakfast yesterday that I think I caught one of those shows somewhere.
No, I'm so jealous. That's awesome because it's on DVD, or it was.
This was like what, like late aughts, like 07, 08.
I was going to say you nailed it on the head. It was 2007.
Yeah,
and that band was a really cool band, and it had some of the people they were all Roz Williams proteges.
Yeah, it was everybody that came from that sort of.
Well, you had the second wave when Roz. It's funny how like Cleopatra has become like the go-to for like goth and metal stuff now.
I just put out some music on Cleopatra.
Yeah, it's like that because it's the place to be. And what's funny is, but in the 90s, Cleopatra was like, that was like where Roz Williams was putting out all his music. He
Everything.
was doing
Everything. Yeah.
Christian Death, the Iron Mask, Christian Death, the just all this different stuff. He was doing Shadow Project.
Yeah.
Just all his bands.
Was Danny from Electric Frankenstein and Shadow Project? Is that the band I'm thinking of?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
All I know is Danny from Electric Frankenstein was in some post Christian Death project with
Right.
Roz, and I think
Right.
it might have been Shadow Project.
Very possible. I know there were a few iterations too of Shadow Project, but in any case, and that's when he started battling Valor.
Oh, for the name. That's
the
similar
name.
to TSOL. Yeah.
Right. And that's, again, we this is like a case study that we're endlessly discussing. We always talk about the Misfits version, but yes, and we've talked about TSOL's version as well a little bit. TSOL and Christian Death, once again, two bands. It's always the same story.
Yep.
There's some new element, whether it's some guy who's like the Jerry Only of the situation, whether it's Valor. I'd say Valor and Jerry have a lot in common in that kind of way, yeah. or even Joe Wood, where they come in.
Are you aware that there's the same problem with LA Guns?
Okay, so I'm
not supposed to talk about it, but
yeah. I kind of had a feeling, and I wasn't sure if I should ask you about it, so I didn't actually, but I sort of understood that. And I don't know if that was it. Does that have to do with Guns N' Roses, or there's two different LA Guns bands?
No, what it is the 10-cent version is that Tracy at some point was the namesake of the band, the guy who wrote all the music, the noted guitar player, at some point left the band. I don't know the whole story, and it doesn't apply to me. It's none of my whatever. It's old news.
Right.
And the rest of the band kept going. And so they got another guitar player. They put out some albums. And then at some point, let's say 10 years later, Tracy and the singer, Phil Lewis, reconciled and were like, we should put the band back together. But Tracy's thing was, I don't want to work with the drummer. I don't like him. He's done some things and blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha.
Hence we're having this conversation. But so Phil basically dissolved LA Guns they had sort of a rotating cast of bass players, but took the guitar player, and then Tracy took his solo band, which was our current drummer, and then our bass player, his bass player Johnny Martin, and they combined. So we got the original guitar player and the original singer, and then the original singer and his guitar player meeting with the original guitar player and his drummer and bass player, and formed what we know as LA Guns now, sans today, as in without the one guitar player. I'm in his stead. But so that went on for a couple years, and that drummer, I'm not even going to say his name, went off to do whatever and was living his life. And then I'm not even supposed to talk about this, but basically the reunion got all this hype and press, and the numbers went up, and the band was doing well and is doing well. And then all of a sudden he was like, somebody offered him what we would call like I'm trying to choose my wording carefully here. Fucking blabbermouth, always hanging on to everything. Basically somebody offered him a chunk of change out of spite to put together an alternate version.
Oh my God.
And then it went through all this litigation.
But he is original. He's the drummer.
He's not even an original member.
So how could he do that then?
Legally he can't. And so we ended up, now he has his namesake version of, it's, whatever, Mark's LA Guns, and then we're LA Guns, which is so.
It's just like the Cro-Mags too. You have like you had Harley got the name back,
and then it's him versus John Joseph,
right? And then
it's such a fine line though, because it's like, to me, it's like if you have Dave Vanian and Captain Sensible, that's the Damned. Now, if Rat Scabies wants to play, some damn songs.
This is so interesting.
He should be able to play damn songs. But if he decides to start a band 5 years later, you can't just call it the Damned. The same thing happened with Faster Pussycat, where the timeline was going, and I was in the lineup through all that too, which was a fucking nightmare. And the same guy singing in the scab version of Faster Pussycat is now singing in the scab version of LA Guns. That motherfucker, nice kid, but just, Come
That's
on, man.
so, but this is like, this
But
is
so
what's
you
so
get this
interesting.
this
Yeah,
timeline going, and then like a company, and you get fired, or this guy quits, or
right.
whatever, and it, guy comes in, the original guy comes back, whatever, and the timeline's going, and then you get these guys over here that go, oh, we decided 7 years later we want to take, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to flip the coin on that on TSOL, because at that point it was four of the original guys versus Joe Wood and whoever he,
Right.
I
It was
can't
Joe
remember.
Mitch was the
Mitch
drummer after
Dean.
Todd.
Yeah,
Mitch
yeah.
Dean, he came in to fill
Yeah.
in. So he's like, he's not, if you call TSOL, whatever you want to call it, TSOL Mach 2,
Yeah,
he
Mach
was
2.
there from the beginning of TSOL Mach 2
Yeah.
with Joe Wood. So him and Joe Wood basically slowly but surely, as Ron and Mike leave the band, slowly but surely, they basically buy out all the interest
Yeah.
in the name. And then the four original guys, I mean, it's literally, this is probably the most extreme version of this. I can't think of anything more extreme.
It is, because I almost side with Joe Wood, but at the end of the day,
Interesting.
when you because of the timeline, but when you start talking about buying stuff out like that, and it's not like they disappeared into obscurity. They got signed to a major label and were like on MTV, so
Right.
it was like they had a horse in the race. And so I get why the four guys came back around and were kind
But
of
if
like,
you're calling yourself TSOL, so here's what's interesting though, and it's again, are you familiar with the philosoph? I think I think I mentioned this in the previous stream, the idea of the Greek ship, and if you remove every part of the Greek ship at some point, and then eventually there's nothing from the Greek ship that's like original, it's all replaced. What makes the Greek ship the Greek ship? If it was it's like a ship that's supposed to be like 2,000 years old that had slowly been replaced over time or whatever.
well, I know where you're going with the analogy, and I get it, but you got to, everybody, there's this nostalgia thing, just the same reason we want Walk Among Us era or whatever, or we want, we want to go see Flag because it's the guys. We don't care about Greg Gins, him and six guys he found. You know what I mean? We want that nostalgia lineup,
but
or that
that's the
nostalgia
more
version.
legitimate. But here's what's fascinating.
But you're balancing that between what the fans want and nostalgia versus a business sense and sort of like reality,
Right. But here's what's interesting. To bring up Flag. So again, all of these are like very interesting case studies, especially what you just said about the Damned. But here's a perfect example. Flag is full of people who maybe contributed lyrics. In some cases, like Keith Morris legitimately contributed lyrics that would consider him to be publisher or have publishing interests.
The Wasted EP or something,
right?
Like that?
I mean, it's not a lot. Nothing. All of it pales in comparison to Greg Ginn, and you have diehard Flag fans. And for anybody who wants the full deep dive, we did 2 ginormous. It's 5 hours of Flag.
I was at that channel. TSOL and Flag show in Philly.
Oh, you were. I was at the. Okay, we were on the same tour. 2013. Yes.
Yeah, 13. What a great show.
Such a great show.
But see, that's the right way to do it, is be like, we're Flag. And if you know, you know. You know what I mean? It's
they didn't
like,
call themselves Black Flag.
No, and that's to me, that's the right way to do it. Just the same way Steven Adler's always had Adler's Appetite or Adler or something where it's like a wink and a nod. But like, if Steven Adler, for example, who's a friend, if he went out and was like, I decided to call my band Guns N' Roses, it doesn't work. And so in my instance, it's sort of the same thing where it's like, call it something else and play the songs. Sure. But like, to call it the same thing, sort of and this is me speaking as a fan and not as a representative of the band, but to call it that, to sort of dupe people into being like, oh, people were like, I bought your new record and I'm going to see you. And I'm like, that's not the band with the singer or the guitar player or the namesake, and that's what had to go through all this we had to sue and like all this litigation and all this shit.
Confusion. Look at what happened to the Misfits. And you know what? When Glenn was suing, and a lot of people were like, at the time, maybe it's like you're rooting for Jerry and Doyle because you want the Misfits to come back, and everybody wants the Misfits to come back because they missed the Misfits. But it's like at the same time, and Glenn, I don't think Glenn, when Glenn was trying to stop this from happening, I don't think he was trying to stop it from happening because he was necessarily thinking about brand confusion. He just didn't want it to happen, period.
Yeah,
But
and that's an artistic control that I personally believe he had the right to,
yeah,
because
I do as
even
well.
though we love Uncle Jerry, we really
Yes.
do, the entire
He should have changed the name. I've said
yes,
this. I
completely.
constantly say this on the channel.
I treat
Yes.
it like two other bands. It's two bands to me.
They
And
could have
it,
called themselves the Resurrected. They could have called themselves so many different things. They
Yeah.
could have Dead King's Rise. There was a bunch of names. They want to call themselves them. They would
Yeah.
have gotten more respect. It just would have made more
But
sense.
the
But now
value was
compare
in
it.
the name. And I know a ton of stuff that I'm not going to say on air
Yeah.
because we had the same booking agent for forever.
It comes down to that, right? It's just like
so
hey,
much. It's
guarantees,
business.
you know?
It's business stuff. It's
Yeah.
business stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I could make $500 calling
You're
it
motivated. Yes.
calling it Frumess and Ace, or if we call it
Right.
Metallica, we're going to get a lot of money.
Right.
Or
right.
whatever, and it becomes a fine line, and it really is case by case. And again, even if I wasn't in the band that I'm in, I would still side with the guys, because I'd be like, wait a minute, so you're the singer and you're the lead guitar player who wrote all the songs and the band's named after you and you're the only true original member. That's the band. It's like if you
you have to have a founding member,
Yep.
you have to have a front man,
Yep.
or you have to have a creative songwriter
That's
in order to
that's
continue.
my band.
Right?
That's my band versus a guy that was the drummer on the second album on. So,
Yeah.
and again, talking about original members, the first record of LA Guns, the drummer's actually Nicky Beat, who was in the Germs and the Weirdos and the Skulls and Mau Mau's and the Joneses and all that stuff, so
let's take a look again at this thing, and we're gonna listen. It's almost
Sure.
midnight. Well, let's wrap this up at midnight, because
yeah,
it's just gonna. Yeah, I have to wake up anyway
Yeah.
for the kids and stuff. It's gonna.
Yeah.
But listen, you definitely have to come back on. This was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really everybody enjoyed having you on.
Good to
Let's
hear.
pull at this damn thing for a minute, because that is a fascinating notion. The idea that, okay, so Rat Scabies is an original member, and I don't know how much Rat contributed to the songwriting. I don't know what the deal was in the Damned, if it was like because there's some bands where it's like 25%, right?
I'm a pretty avid Damned fan, and I think
what is it?
Most of the first two records were written solely by Brian James, including a lot of the lyrics, if not most of them.
Interesting. Wow.
And I mean, I know New Rose is a sole Brian James composition.
Really?
Yeah. And then I think when they broke up initially in 78 or 9, and they had that little thing where Lemmy was in the band for a minute.
Lemmy was a bass player.
Yeah. Motor Damned, and they did those couple songs. He played on their version of Ballroom Blitz, which is killer. You can't miss his bass tone.
Wow.
And then they came back, and then Sensible took over, and it was the Sensible show. But I believe that Scabies had some writing credit, and there's some stuff post Captain Sensible in their sort of new romantic gothic era, that Scabies wrote. And I can't remember.
He leaves in 96, right? So I mean, there was a time where it was Dave Vanian and Scabies steering that ship,
and whoever else,
right?
And I believe, and that was kind of when Scabies was kind of our Jerry only, if you will. And so he was kind of like the man running the show, because I think Dave's I did a tour with the Damned, by the way, and so I got to kind of rub elbows with them for about 2 weeks in 2009, which was a whole other story for another time. But
wow.
But now they're doing, the Damned is as it is, it is a lineup, but then they're doing these handful of reunion shows with all 4 of them,
which is fascinating.
Awesome.
Me. Oh, I love it. I love it.
It's like, look, just do it. It's respectfully, it's a little bit, it's probably a cash grab. Everybody's
I think it's very tasteful. It's very tasteful.
It's absolutely tasteful.
Yeah.
But it's, those guys are getting up there. So late 60s. So you know what, if they want to send everybody out with, $50,000 for a while,
but put your band, they're putting the band on ice and going, listen, we're going to do an original run.
Yeah.
And everybody's
and that's okay.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a very cool way to sort of do that sort of thing,
I before the pandemic happened, I was looking into buying tickets to fly over to see it, because I just wanted to catch that,
right, because it was only in England, right?
Yeah, only in the UK.
Because they did not want to travel with that. They were like, "Fuck that, we're just going to do it in England and call it."
Yeah, and then they've postponed and
right,
and whatever, and now
still postponed, right?
Yeah, I think. But then the Damned is their current incarnation, the touring lineup, which
Right.
also includes a bass player from the sort of original heyday Strawberries era, whose name is
right. He came, and
He's
that's
back.
the lineup I saw with the key player who left. Oxymoron, I think his name is.
Oh,
Is he
Monty left?
Yeah, he's gone. It's
I
think the keyboard player bounced.
No, I think you're thinking of the drummer.
No, you're right. Pinch
It's
the drummer. The
Pinch
drummer
is
left.
gone. And
My
I know
bad. My bad.
Pinch. I know Pinch because he was the talent buyer at House of Blues San Diego. So I just know him as like a guy from the industry who also happens to be in the Damned, or was for a long time.
Left. Yeah, he left.
He was in like 20 plus years.
Right. But the bass player, he's like the second. He's the second bass player essentially. He's the
third. Yeah.
Or right, the third after Lemmy. But he's like
Algie. He was after Algie Ward.
Oh, wait a minute. Isn't he even? Hold on a second. Captain Sensible.
Yep.
Then
Algie.
Lemmy.
Oh, well,
then
okay.
Algie.
Yeah, if we're counting Lemmy, yeah. But and then Algie came in for the Machine Gun Etiquette era.
Right.
And I think he's on the Black album. I think. And then he split. And then they got the guy whose name I can see his face. The guy from Eddie and the Hot Rods. I know my punk rock, but I can't remember his fucking name.
Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know. I just got a notification from you, Chris, in the comments. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Something happened. I just got this third-party software. You can't really read. It's so weird. I'm looking over here. I don't see anything. But thank you, Chris. Big salute to you. But what's interesting is, here's what's interesting. So now let's say that separately, and we're obviously not, this is not news. We are talking completely circumstantially.
Yeah.
As we're exploring this notion of bands, like bands doing stuff or fracturing and then doing their own versions of bands. And I guess I didn't understand the Guns, whatever you want to call it, the Guns universe is way bigger than I thought. Like this, because these, the tree, it's a big tree, much bigger than I thought it was, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, LA Guns is a pretty intense family tree, if you will.
Right. They have a tree. Now, let's say that Rat Scabies was like, all right, I'm doing Rat Scabies, the Damned. Would people be like,
they did that. He and Brian James, they toured, and Texas Terry, who I mentioned earlier, she sang for them. They did a whole slew of dates across Europe as Damned.
Yeah, but they didn't call themselves but they were after the album name. They wasn't actually. They weren't saying
you need to watch. You need to watch the documentary, my friend.
I'm going to watch the documentary. It sounds like I really need to watch this documentary. Was there tension? Was there friction over that?
Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
There's a moment where Captain Sensible is on like a train going across Europe, and he's holding up a newspaper, and it says like Brian James and Rat Scabies doing Damned, and it's the album cover, and he goes, I don't know if you guys know this, but I think that's me, being like basically calling it out, being like, they're advertising my face, but which we encountered. It was like we were seeing press releases from another band with the similar name, right? With people's names and pictures. And we're going like, you're purposely misleading people,
Yeah.
And it's case by case to me. I don't
case by case.
Case by case. And
look at the Ramones. Look at the Ramones.
Oh yeah. Well, right? And then we've got all those, but there's no shortage of Marky and Dee Dee not Dee Dee, but Richie and everybody and CJ sometimes going out and playing. And I think it's great. Like, not that I'm a Ramone, but if I, in 20 years, when everyone's retired or no longer with us, want to go out and play as Ace Vaughn Johnson, and that you're going to hear the songs that maybe know me from whatever band, sure. No, totally. But I'm not going to go out there and be like, I decided to start a band. I'm going to call it Faster Pussycat because I was in the band once 20 years ago. Especially when you're going up against that concurrent version of said band, which is where the TSOL thing personally to me gets tricky. It's like, that's why I think, even though I'm sure there was a legal loophole, they did the right thing. They did the right thing with that Live 91, it was like, Jack and Ron and Mike and Todd, by name. And
but they did that
if you knew, you knew.
Yes, but
of course it was begrudgingly. They should have been able to go out and play as TSOL.
They should have.
They couldn't because there was still a
They
concurrent
legally
timeline.
did not own the name, which
The
is so
Greek ship
insane.
was still going with different parts, right?
Right, the Greek ship. But that's what's so crazy is like this idea that like, and then here's what I don't understand. And again, I get it. I get it. Like at that point, it's like the name becomes a brand, and the brand is a valuable asset for guarantees. And that's ultimately what motivates people to do these things. But here's the thing. When you look at these from a fan perspective, it is just so, and then here's the thing. Maybe you should be looking at it from a fan perspective.
It can be devastating, and I know because I've seen bands where I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" You know, you show up and it's like the drummer or it's the guy that played tambourine, and there's no singer or whatever the fuck it is. And but
it's weird, man.
It just depends. It's really going to be case by case. I went to see the Sonics a few years ago, and it was like, big fan. And
yeah.
Was
love the Sonics.
Me too. And it was like some original members, and then I went and saw him again, and it was like even less some original members. And then I saw him again, and it was like the guy that replaced the original guy in 70. So he was like the Doyle, you know what I mean? He's not an original, but he was there for the heyday. And it just and same thing with the Beach Boys. I just went and saw the Beach Boys last month, and they were fantastic. But it's Mike Love and
Bruce Johnson.
Yeah, it's the two guys, and then just sort of whoever. It's like their kids and John Stamos, and then like
is John Stamos is playing drums for him, right?
Yeah, guitar and then it's the John Stamos show. He kind of like meanders
awesome.
around the stage doing whatever he wants, and his guitar in huge letters said "Saget," and I was like, right on.
That's great. You know, I got to tell you, I would go. So I got to see the 2012 reunion with Brian Wilson, Keith Jardine, Al Jardine.
Yeah.
I saw the band. Like I saw that version of the band.
That's
but what
huge.
happened, it was huge. It was such a treat. It was such an it was the equivalent of seeing not the Beatles, but like this is a band
up there.
It's up there. If you think about it, these are contemporaries of the Beatles, and now the core creative team is getting back together and they're doing all the hits, and oh my God, they were fucking phenomenal. But what's crazy is, I'm not going to get into, we don't have to get into the whole Mike Love thing, but the point is that Mike Love is like, okay, we're putting you on ice, and now I'm going to take, because the Beach Boys play something like 300 shows a year or 250 shows a year. The Bruce Johnson, Mike Love version of Beach Boys,
yes.
They constantly are touring. But what's amazing is that he could reunite with Al Jardine and friggin' Brian Wilson and do all the hits and stuff. And they sound great and they do a great thing. And then he goes, okay, we're putting you on ice, and now we're going to go do the other thing. And it's just kind of like, how can you keep doing, like, it's like, what are you doing to the name? I mean, well, they call it, they're Beach Boys, but they're really beach old men. So it's kind of like, but I don't know. It's just, it really is subjective. Like there's no, and the thing I mentioned about going back to the Ramones for a minute, what I'm referring to is the fact that the Ramones had two songwriters in the band, two principal
Dee Dee
songwriters.
And Johnny, or I guess Dee
Dee and Joey. Johnny did not write. Johnny never wrote any songs. As a matter of fact, Johnny was not a songwriter. Johnny, when the band started, it was a 25% split between the four members. And listen, you've been in a billion bands, and I'm sure I've heard this from countless musicians that when you do a split like that, it makes for it. There's less. Yeah, well, there's less tension because there's just, it's a way to like nip certain problems in the bud because you're just not dealing with certain resentments that come with,
that's what's inevitable when you don't.
Right.
We call it keep the troops happy kind of thing.
Keep the troops happy. And then, then the counter to that also is like, well, look, I'm the one that's doing all the fucking legwork here. And like, you can look at the argument from both sides very easily. Sure. Yeah. You can look at what happened between Andy and friggin' Sting and friggin' what's it song? I'll Be Watching You with Puff Daddy. That whole situation was insane. The riff, it was Andy's riff, but Sting had the publishing for the song.
Yeah. And
so he got the money and Andy didn't get anything, even though that was the only part that was used in the song.
Was his part. Yeah.
Was his part. Like crazy shit. You know what I mean? So Johnny Ramone never wrote anything. Frankly, Johnny Ramone didn't even really play any solos or leads on
No,
those
and
studio
you
albums.
know
Walter
who
Lure,
fucking
Dan,
beat me to it. Yeah, Walter Lure.
Walter Lure, Daniel Ray,
Yeah.
and fucking Mickey Lee. Those
Yeah.
guys were.
Well, I like pinpointing the Walter Lure stuff out because I'm such a Heartbreakers fan.
What did I got to go to Walter Lure's house and I interviewed him about 12 years ago out in Sheep's Bay, Queens. And it was that will be, if you are a Patreon person, you will get to see some that will be making its way soon enough. Billy Rath too. If you haven't seen the Billy Rath video, you got to watch the Billy Rath video on my channel.
No, I haven't, but I'll check that out.
Okay, so Joe Truck and I like found Billy Rath.
Yeah,
I didn't find Billy Rath. He found Billy Rath.
I know Joe Truck through Ian Thorne.
Oh, do you really? Yeah, Joe was okay. So Joe was on Pizza Punk as well, but Joe and you watched, yeah. So Joe and I go, so Joe and I go way back.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing guy.
And he's got the Brain Eater stuff coming out on Cleopatra, right?
Yes, it's coming out on Cleopatra. Very happy that EP was long overdue. Yeah, long overdue to come out. But wait, what were we talking about? Oh, Walter Lure. How do you know what do you know? Or how do you know what he played on? Because I don't. What
off the top of my head, I don't, but I know it's that sort of like 80s.
Right, it wouldn't have been in the 90s.
No, it's like Pleasant Dreams.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Maybe what's the blue with the shadows? It's
Too
my
Tough
favorite.
to Die.
Too Tough to Die. It was my favorite Ramones record. I can't remember the fucking title.
Johnny has songwriting credits on that.
He does. Yeah,
he co-wrote songs with Dee Dee. That was the one time they were really getting along together in the band.
But it would be around that era. I know he's on, I'm going to say 3 albums, talking about Walter Lure, at least 2, if not 3, but he's on a couple songs. Cause like as a Heartbreakers, Johnny Thunder's disciple, if you will, as a young man, like picking up a guitar early on, I would hear an occasional solo on a Ramone song. And I'd be like, that's not Johnny, you know what I mean? But
my point is that he was, Johnny called the shots. Johnny was staked in that publishing. They were all staked in the publishing because of the split. However, so Dee Dee leaves, leaving Joey, who is not, I would say Dee Dee is probably the main songwriter, even though Joey is writing some songs, right?
Yeah, Dee Dee was definitely the heart of the band.
Right. So now you have this interesting situation. You still have 2 remaining founding members. One of them is the front man. So you have the voice box. You have 2 founding members. That's not to say that, like, obviously Johnny's guitar is irreplaceable and yada, 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 and signature and whatnot. But
yes,
we're just talking about all the factors. But you have Dee Dee Ramone continues to write for the band despite not being in the band.
Yeah, which I think is a unique,
very unique situation.
Interesting, and then sort of like a cool, like imagine if that applied to, it's much different, but imagine if Danzig kept writing for the Misfits when Michael Graves was singing for him. You know what I mean? Like,
that makes my brain melt, because it's just, I appreciate what you're saying, but it's too extreme. It's just too extreme. It's too extreme, because he would that would never happen. Like, I need something. You got to give me something better than that. You got to give me like,
all right.
Give me that, because that's just, we know that's crazy. That's crazy.
I mean, whatever. Jack Grisham writing lyrics for Joe Wood's first record or whatever.
Okay. That makes a little
but the
more
Ramones
sense.
thing made sense, because I don't think they were necessarily on bad terms with Dee Dee. I think he just wasn't in the band.
It was time. Yeah, it was time for them to leave.
Yeah. He was was he a mess at that time?
He was unhappy. He had been unhappy for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. From the 80s on, in the 80s, he was going through the motions.
Yeah, and then he went off and did the Dee Dee King thing. And
except those songs ended up becoming Ramone songs. The Crusher was his version of a hip hop song.
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's just, this is a fascinating case study that I literally could, like, for instance, there's other bands, like a great example, like, you can't replace, like, once Ringo Starr comes into the Beatles are the Beatles. That's it. 4 interchangeable parts. You remove one of the parts, it's no longer the Beatles. Although some would argue that they were, John Lennon doesn't play on a lot of George. If you look at post 1967, John Lennon's contributions to George Harrison songs are minimal, if non-existent. Like, for instance, John Lennon, I don't think he plays on Here Comes the Sun or something. And if he does, it's either backing vocals or some piano. He doesn't contribute to those songs at all. I Me Mine, John Lennon doesn't play on it at all. Those songs in early January of 1970, that's the Threedles working together. It's the same thing with the New York Dolls, the 3 guys.
Yeah, but that's every band. That's every band. There's, like Kirk Hammett doesn't play on any Metallica stuff other than he'll throw a solo on it. It's like all the 90% of the
right. That's
stuff
true, and that's Joey Santiago.
That's just every band. I mean, there's some LA Gun stuff on the new record. Like, there's probably 3 songs I didn't play on. It still says my name on it. Yeah. So it's where you kind of like.
Right, because you're presenting your band, and then the band has these members in it. I mean, it's the same thing where they credit Joey Image on Mr. Jim songs, I think it is, or Doyle. Glenn played guitar. Essentially, it's known that Glenn played most of the guitar on Walk Among Us, and that Doyle didn't really play much of anything.
Sure.
But yet it's credited to Doyle's guitar playing. So
yeah, it's you're keeping up appearances.
You're keeping up appearences.
There's albums that say my guitar and my name and my face, and that I might have played on one song, or when I joined LA Guns, perfect example, the record from 2018, The Devil You Know, I'm pictured on it, my name's on it. I did all the promo videos and stuff for it, but the album was already being pressed when I joined the band. So or was already done and in the can. So you get stuff like that where you're like, well, we're going to present it this way. And if you read like we do, you read the liner notes and you dig in there, before there was a Wikipedia and everything, you'd be like, oh, look at that. Dee Dee Ramone wrote this song. I thought he wasn't in the band anymore. So it's It's really just, and when you talk about like, we know, but like if the average person was going to see the Ramones, or the average person was going to see the Misfits or whatever, a lot of people just don't know, especially pre-internet. When I was at Madison Square Garden, the woman who was next to me kept asking me when they were going to play Saturday night.
Yeah.
I can't
but
make that up.
And that
is just like, I don't think you're going to hear that at the show, sweetheart.
What it is, ultimately, but that's ultimately the sins of the Kayaffa brothers, in that we're going to
There's your next documentary, The Sins of the Kayaffa Brothers.
No, but like we love you, Uncle Jerry and Cousin Doyle. They know this.
We do.
We're just we're waxing nerdily about your band. No, but like it's the idea that like by continuing this band and using this name, you have now invited endless comparison and scrutinization of American Psycho. People are going to go American Psycho, Famous Monsters, and then Devil's Reign when talking about Static Age. It's bananas.
Yeah.
It's bananas. I mean, even within the original band, that you have 4 or 5 different bands. So it's like,
you're not wrong. Yeah. But it's like you're encompassing this original, 6.5 year window from 77 to 83. Or even if you want to bleed into 84 as far as like releases coming out,
right?
Like the Die
and then Legacy.
Legacy. Did Evil Live come out posthumously as a full length? I think
yes, it did in 88.
And that's how much later? God, I thought it was earlier.
And what's interesting is if you look at the cover, look at the bleed through colors. I don't know this. I don't remember where I read this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the Pussycat interview where he's talking about what he wanted for the Walk Among Us album cover.
Oh, he wanted to be that.
He's talking about the bleed down. I think that that Evil Live is that thing. He just had to wait all that time. And then when they were putting that together, he was like, okay, this is what I want you to do. And they did it. They did it the right kind of way. And that's what he initially had wanted for Walk Among Us.
I have a 10-second story for you. That's unrelated to really anything. At the same time, a couple years ago for my birthday, I bought 2 things I was really looking for. We're talking about one sheets. That I wanted for a long time. And I got Angry Red Planet. And then somehow I came across A Creature Walks Among Us. And they're 2 of my favorite pieces. And I took them in, I had them framed, and I brought them home. and I'm looking at them both like I'm going to put these up, and I'm going, what is it about these two movies that are unrelated? What is it between these two movie posters? There's some, and I Walk Among Us, Rat Bat Spider, and I'm looking, and like a week went by, and I was like, Walk Among Us.
Right.
I was like, I got them tattooed on me, but I got
yeah.
Hey, don't do that. I got the Rat Bat Spider and
the
Walk Among Us, and I was like, oh, my little Misfits fiend nerd
the
brain
Misfits
melted
Walk
right
Among
there.
Us. Yes, the Misfits Walk Among Us and the Rat Bat Spider.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna put a pin in this, yes, because I already see it's leaking into 3 hours.
Yeah, 4 in the morning, a cup of coffee.
Yeah, it's just gonna keep going. I listen. I want to thank Ace so much for his time. Everybody, listen. I didn't get a chance to talk about this enough. I'm going to talk about it here. We still have 20 people watching on various platforms. So that's 20 people at 3 hours in, which is pretty good retention,
impressed.
I would say, for literally listening to two dudes talk on the internet. Check out Ace's Patreon. It's down in the description of this video. Please do check out. Follow Ace on Twitter. He's always tweeting really cool stuff on Twitter. He's very active on Twitter.
Yeah.
Check out his Instagram. Check out all of his links. He's got a t-shirt store. He's got a ton of stuff, guys. So make sure you follow and explore all of those links. Okay. And I just want to thank Ace again so much for coming on. Is definitely going to be back. We'll have him in various capacities at some point. We'll come back. We'll do a part 2 when it's time, and we'll have him for Sinful Celluloid, and you'll see him in the comments and whatnot if he chooses to. Thank you, Ride Stickers. Enjoy it. Rue Morg says this episode was fucking cool tonight, Mr. Frumess. Thank you, Ace, for being and sharing your musical history experiences. Godspeed to you. Catch you next time. Be good, safe, and cough cool. And we have a wonderful way of closing out the show. Ace, stick around for 2 seconds. That's after I do this thing. I'm gonna do my little Patreon video and then Ace, stick around. Guys, we have a wonderful way of saying goodbye on the show. We say peace and hair grease. And make sure we finally the thing has evolved. Make sure, what the fuck happened to it? Where's my thing? Where's this? Where is it? Hey, okay. Talking to my digital producer who is automated. Do you guys know about the Patreon?
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jeff. So I've decided to make a Patreon. What is Patreon? I don't know how to define a Patreon. Let me look it up. Patreon is a membership platform that makes it very easy for creators to get paid for the things that they're already creating. I want to do it full time. I want this to be my full-time job. In my efforts to make that happen, I've set up this platform. Is it going to work? Is it going to be successful? I don't know, but I would rather try and crash and burn than not try at all. The goal is to create enough passive revenue so that I can continue to do this full-time, uninterrupted. Why? Because I love to do this. I love creating content. I love making videos. I love shooting films. I love doing podcasts. In case you couldn't tell, I love to talk and I never shut the fuck up. So right now I've kept the Patreon incredibly simple. There's 2 tiers, and that may change in the future. The Murdergram is a simple way to extend support for all of the hours and hours of free content on the channel for nothing more than $1. 38 cents goes to Patreon. What's $1.38, eh? It's less than a cup of coffee, but it's a great way that you can show support for very little effort. When you divide that $1.38 by the hours and hours and hours of time spent listening to this endless drivel of content, the dollar cost average works out. Next up is the YouTube Casualty for $6.66. The YouTube Casualty is loaded to the gills. Enjoy the archive ad-free, as well as ad-free early access to special docu-style podcast videos, music reaction commentaries, and the like, a month before they drop on YouTube, loaded with ads, I might add. You're also going to get exclusive content and behind-the-scenes content that is not available on YouTube or anywhere else. So you get to peek behind the veil. And believe me, there's a couple of choice pieces. Most of all, more than anything, whether you join the Patreon or not, I just want to thank each and every one of you that comes to the channel, that watches all the shows, that leaves comments, that participates, that subscribes. That's really the most important thing. This is just trying to find a way to earn a living as an artist. And with that, thank you for my TED Talk. Join the Patreon because we need you!
66 cents.